Hey guys, tonight we're taking a trip back to a time you probably wouldn't survive, no matter how tough you think you are. Picture this. It's a murky evening in medieval Europe, and you're standing in the middle of a village that looks more like a scene from a horror movie than something you'd call home. The muddy streets are filled with the cries of children, the smell of unwashed bodies, and the ever-present stench of farm animals roaming freely between homes. You're bundled in a threadbare tunic, your shoes more holes than fabric. Your life is tough, and every day feels like a new battle against the elements, hunger, and your very existence. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. And hey, drop where you're listening from and what time it is where you are. I'm always curious about that now. Dim the lights. Maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum. And let's ease into tonight's journey together. It's easy to romanticize the past, to look at those dusty old medieval paintings with their rolling green hills and knightly glory, but the reality of medieval life was anything but fairy tale. The peasant's life wasn't a dream, it was a grueling existence, where you fought tooth and nail for every scrap of food and inch of land. And it was brutal, especially when you were at the mercy of forces far beyond your control, forces that made you wish you had never been born. Your life, in a nutshell, was ruled by three things: your land, your lord, and your faith. Now, let's get into the thick of things. Your land. You wake up each morning to the sounds of the rooster crowing, and the first thing you feel is the cold, damp earth beneath you. The ground might be frozen in the winter or turned to mud in the spring, but your bare feet hit it anyway as you prepare for another day of work. The village is small, maybe 30 or 40 families scattered in tight clusters, and there's no privacy to speak of. You share a roof, a hearth, and maybe a little bit of hope with others who are in the same boat. You can even call it hope.life here in medieval Europe. Isn't easy. You don't own the land you work on, it's all under the control of the local lord. A person of high rank who probably hasn't worked a single day of manual labor in his life. He has an army of men that are as ruthless as they are loyal, and they're the ones who make sure you hand over a portion of whatever you grow. It's not exactly a cozy arrangement, is it? But what do? You have no choice but to work the land. The crops you grow: wheat, barley, oats are what feeds you, and maybe, just maybe, you can eke out a little profit at market. But here's the kicker. Even if you work from sun up to sundown, there's never quite enough. And if the harvest fails, well, that's when things get bad. Let's talk about famine for a second, because it's not something you're ever really prepared for. You've heard the term famine before, right? Maybe in history class, or in the news when some distant part of the world is affected. But when it hits your village, it's different. It's personal. You're not talking about some land, but your very own survival. And when famine hits, you don't just go without fancy dinners. You go without anything at all. So you're working your hands raw in the fields. You're praying for a good harvest, and yet each year seems to bring more misery. The crops fail for one reason or another. Maybe it's too much rain, maybe too little. Maybe the soil's just too exhausted. The weather can't seem to make up its mind, and soon the fields are as barren as your stomach. Food becomes a rare commodity, and when the food's gone, that's when the real suffering begins. Starvation is a silent killer that no one ever talks about in the history books. It's slow, it's cruel, and it leaves you hollow, not just in body, but in spirit too. But famine isn't the only thing that threatens your existence. Oh no, there's another much more immediate danger lurking, one that sneaks in when you least expect it. This one is invisible, though you can't see it coming. You can't even feel it creeping up on you until it's too late. It's the plague, the Black Death. Just the name sounds terrifying, doesn't it? It's the one thing you fear more than hunger because it promises a quick, inevitable death. It spreads like wildfire, tearing through towns, villages, and cities without mercy. And it doesn't care who you are or where you're from. It doesn't care whether you've been a good peasant, working hard in the fields, or if you've been a nasty one who refuses to give up a single ear of corn to the poor. It doesn't care whether you pray or whether you're an atheist. The plague is equal opportunity, except it's much more lethal to you than the nobility. Historians still argue about how the Black Death spread. Some say it was carried by fleas from rats, while others point to human contact or airborne particles. Regardless of how it came to be, when the Black Death arrived, it didn't just kill, it decimated entire communities. The smell of death becomes an ever-present companion, clinging to the air, and you can't escape it. People you know, friends, neighbors, maybe even families, dropping like flies. The first sign is a high fever, followed by the telltale black boils that swell on your skin. But once you've got them, you've got maybe a few days at best before you succumb. The worst part, you don't know if it's coming for you until it's too late. You could be out in the fields one minute, and the next you feel a bit of a chill, a bit of a sore throat, and suddenly you're part of the very tragedy you've heard stories about. And even if you survive it, well, let's just say that you're never quite the same. The mental scars of watching so many die of silence, the vacant eyes of those left behind stay with you. You've seen entire families wiped out. The church bells that once rang for weddings now toll for funerals. It's all so grim that it starts to feel like the world itself is falling apart. But through it all, there's one constantual Lord. The Lord, your landlord, the one who owns everything and everyone. And let's face it, he's not exactly known for his compassion. Oh, sure, he'll give you a few crumbs if it means you can keep working for him. But when times get tough, he's the first to leave. The rich are always the first to run when disaster strikes, and your lord's estate is no exception. When the plague is at its worst, he locks himself up in his fortress, leaving you and the other peasants to fend for yourselves. This leaves you in a position where, even in the worst of times, you're still expected to pay rent on your land. You're still expected to serve in the Lord's army if he needs you. And you're still expected to give him whatever little food you've managed to scrape together. Meanwhile, he's safe and sound behind stone walls, eating whatever he pleases and looking down on the peasants who make his life possible. The worst part is, you can't escape. You can't even run. Your life is tethered to the land, and as much as you might dream of a better life, you're stuck. Some peasants try to flee when the worst happens, but where can you go? The city is no better. You'd be out of place there, and besides, that's where the plague hits hardest. The countryside is bad, but the cities are death traps. So, here you are, living each day as best as you can, always fighting against forces beyond your control. The plague, the famine, the Lord, and the endless work life is an uphill battle that seems to have no end. But somehow, some way, you keep going. You wake up with the usual aches in your body. The cold earth beneath you never quite allows for a restful night. Even under your worn, rough blanket, the chill creeps in, making you shiver for a few moments before you push it away. The air is damp, and the early morning fog gives everything a hazy, ghost-like quality. The sound of your fellow peasants stirring in their makeshift homes is familiar, a comforting reminder that, though life is brutal, you're not completely alone. As you force yourself to sit up, you notice the same cracks in your walls and the same worn-out thatch roof that's been barely holding itself together for years. Nothing changes here, and why would it? The land you live on, your home, is a direct reflection of your existence. Nothing more than a patch of dirt, a humble dwelling, and a hard life. You throw on your tattered tunic, the fabric worn thin from constant wear, and slip on your shoes, which are more holes than they are shoes. There's no time for luxury here, and there's no such thing as comfort. Your daily existence is nothing but survival. You've learned to work through exhaustion, pain, and hunger, each day rolling into the next like an endless loop of toil. Today, like every other day, you'll work in the fields. There are no days off. The Lord expects his share of whatever you produce, and if you're behind, there's a good chance he'll take more than just the crops. If you're lucky, you'll have enough to feed your family, and perhaps a little extra to store away for the winter. If you're unlucky, there's no telling how you'll make it through the cold months ahead. The ground doesn't care how much effort you put into it. It'll give you what it wants. And if the harvest fails, you can do nothing but pray. But before you head out to work, you take a quick glance at the village. The buildings are cramped together, almost as if they're trying to hide from the world. Your neighbors, too, seem tired, worn down by the constant cycle of work and worry. There's an unspoken bond among you all, born from shared suffering. You all know that if one of you falters, it affects everyone. The community, fragile as it is, relies on each other in ways that can't be fully understood unless you've lived it. Walking past the village, you take in the familiar sights. The blacksmith's forge, where the constant clanging of metal echoes through the air. The baker's oven, emitting the mouth-watering aroma of freshly baked bread if you're lucky. You can sometimes steal a glance at the small loaf set aside for the poorest, and the fields stretching out beyond the village, the very land that dictates your fate. Now, let's talk about that land. The ground you toil on every day. The soil, sometimes rich, sometimes barren, is your livelihood. You're responsible for planting, sowing, and reaping crops, and though it's grueling work, it's the only way to survive. You can't imagine what life would be like without the fields. Without them, you'd have nothing. But even the land has its way of deceiving. You, when it's good, it's your savior. When it's bad, it's your worst enemy. You've seen it happen before. One year, the harvest is bountiful, and you're able to store enough to get through the winter. But the next year, the crops fail for reasons beyond your control. Too much rain, too little. You can't predict it, and even if you could, there's nothing you can do about it. It's a hard pill to swallow. This land is your only hope, but it's also your biggest threat. When it fails, you fail. And when it fails, you face famine. The thought of famine has haunted you for as long as you can remember. You've seen the emaciated faces of your fellow villagers when the food starts to run low. You've heard the rumors, the whispers of families resorting to desperate measures. Some trade what little they have left in exchange for bread, but when the bread runs out, there's nothing to be done. It's the cruelest of cycles. The crops fail, hunger sets in, and then comes the slow march toward death. The ones who die first are often the youngest and the elderly, the ones with the least strength to fight off the gnawing hunger. You've seen children's eyes hollow, out with starvation, heard the soft sobs of parents who know there's nothing they can do. You've seen it all, and it never gets easier. As you labor in the fields, you try to push these thoughts from your mind. Focus on the task at hand. If you can just make it through the day, perhaps you'll be able to survive another. It's all you can do. The work never stops, and neither can you. But even when you're working your hardest, you're not the only one holding a whip over your head. No, there's another force in your life. One that's far more insidious and powerful than anything the land could offer. The Lord. The Lord is the master of your fate. He owns the land, and He's the one who decides whether or not you'll live to see another year. He collects His taxes, demanding a hefty portion of whatever you produce, regardless of whether you have enough to feed your family. The Lord's men come every year, without fail, to collect their share. They're not gentle. If you don't meet the required quota, you face punishment, often brutal. What choice do you have? You can't escape. The Lord's estate is a fortress, and if you try to leave, you risk being labeled a runaway, a thief, or worse. The punishment for that is often swift and unforgiving. No, your life is tied to this land, and there's no way out. You're bound, by law, by necessity, by hunger, and by fear. And yet, in some strange way, there's comfort in it. The Lord may rule over you, but He also provides a semblance of order. There's an understanding, an unspoken agreement. You work the land, you feed the Lord, and in return, you get to survive, even if only just. That's the way it's always been, and that's the way it will always be until something shifts. Until, perhaps, something changes. But that change is a long way off. And right now, you're not thinking about revolutions or the future. Right now, all you can think about is surviving another day. The plague has swept through the land, and the crops have failed. The Lord's men are demanding more than you have. And as the sun sets on another exhausting day, you wonder if tomorrow will bring any hope, or if it will be just another round of struggle. But one thing is for sure, you won't give up, because even in the darkest of times, the peasant still endures. You've seen it before, your neighbors gathering in small groups, faces strained with anxiety as whispers of death move like wildfire through the village. The plague is no longer a distant threat. It's a present, tangible horror that's spreading far faster than you ever thought possible. Your home, your village, your very life are at risk. The early signs of the plague are subtle, like the whisper of an illness you can't quite shake off, a strange sensation that feels wrong, but isn't immediately deadly. But soon the symptoms start to show. Fever, chills, swollen glands, the boils, those gruesome blackened lumps that appear out of nowhere on the skin, like a cruel reminder that death is coming for you and there's nothing you can do to stop it. You've heard rumors, of course, of entire villages wiped out by the plague, of people dropping dead within days of falling ill. But when it's happening to you, when it's happening to your family, your friends, it feels like the world is closing in. Historians still argue over the exact cause of the Black Death. Was it the Yersinia pestis bacterium carried by fleas from rats, or was it some other, more insidious plague of nature? Some even suggest it was the result of poor sanitation, or maybe even divine punishment. But, regardless of how it spread, it doesn't matter much when you're on the front lines, facing it day after day. The truth is, it's spreading too, fast to comprehend, and the more you see, the more you realize that no one is safe. You can't help but look over your shoulder. half expecting to see the telltale signs of illness on a loved one, a neighbor. There's a terrible sense of inevitability in the air, like a storm rolling in from the distance. When it strikes with relentless force, and there's no mercy, no warning. One minute the person standing next to you is fine, and the next, they're writhing in pain, their body succumbing to the disease at an alarming rate. As much as you try to prepare, there's nothing that can save you. You've seen the desperate measures people take, boiling herbs, praying to saints, trying every last remedy your neighbors can come up with. But these are just acts of desperation. There is no cure, no salvation from this invisible killer. Some turn to the church for hope, seeking divine intervention. Others simply hold their loved ones close and pray for a quick death, hoping that the agony won't last too long. And yet, even in the face of such catastrophe, some still find a way to profit. The plague has created a new class of individuals, people who see death as an opportunity. The so-called plague doctors arrive, their strange costumes designed to ward off disease, though they seem as likely to infect others as they are to cure anyone. You've heard stories of these doctors in your village, each one promising to rid you of the plague. They wear long robes and masks shaped like bird beaks, which, they say, protect them from the disease. They're nothing more than quacks, but the fear is so overwhelming that people will do anything for a glimmer of hope. These doctors might take your money, give you a strange concoction, or, worse still, leave you to die alone. It's hard to say which fate is worse, dying from the disease or dying at the hands of someone who's supposed to help. Life in the village becomes a grim spectacle. The streets, once filled with chatter and laughter, now lie empty, save for the occasional cart hauling away the dead. The smell of death is unmistakable. It's in the air, and it's everywhere. Some say it's the smell of rotting bodies. Others think it's the result of bad air. But whatever the cause, it doesn't matter when the plague is spreading through every home, every street, leaving behind only the hushed whispers of the departed. You've lost count of how many people have died in the past few weeks. The young ones are the first to go, the elderly following close behind. It's almost a relief when someone passes quickly, their suffering cut short by the cruel hand of fate. But it doesn't take away the guilt, the feeling that you could have done something to help. Even if you couldn't, you still feel the weight of their death pressing on your chest. And still, the work doesn't stop. The fields remain, the crops need tending, and the Lord will still demand his share, no matter how bad the harvest might be. There's no escaping the demands of the land, the ever-present burden of survival. If you don't work, you starve. If you don't pay, you face punishment. The lords aren't concerned with your suffering, they're concerned with what they can take from you. In the midst of all this, you've learned something important. Survival is about more than just food, more than just shelter. It's about holding on to hope, however fragile it may be. It's about finding a reason to keep going, even when everything around you is falling apart. You've seen the worst of it, and yet you're still here. You're still standing, but there's something else you're starting to understand. The Lord's power isn't as absolute as it once seemed. As the plague sweeps through the land, some of the wealthier families start to leave, abandoning their estates to escape the disease. The once solid foundations of power are cracking. The nobility might have the wealth and the land, but they don't have immunity to the plague. They can lock themselves away in their castles. But it doesn't change the fact that death comes for everyone, no matter how much gold they hoard. Even they are powerless against the disease. It's a strange thought, one that gives you a sliver of hope in this dark time. If the rich can't protect themselves from death, what makes the Lord so untouchable? What makes the system they've built so secure? The answer is simple: nothing. It's all an illusion. The plague has come to show you that no one, not even the highest lords, are safe from the forces of nature. The only true power you have is the strength to endure. As the weeks drag on, you start to feel the strain of it all. The fear, the loss, the constant tension in the air. The land is more hostile than ever, the crops barely yielding enough to survive. But the worst part is that you're starting to lose people. And in a village like this, where everyone is so closely knit, the loss of one person is a loss felt by all. It doesn't matter if it's a neighbor or a distant relative. When someone dies, it's like a piece of the village dies with them. But somehow, you push through. You keep working the land. You keep fighting for every scrap of food, every chance of survival. And you do it not just for yourself, but for those who remain. It's not the future you imagined, but it's the one you've been given. And as much as you may want to give up, you know that you can't. And so, the cycle continues. The plague will eventually subside, but the struggle will never end. The land will always demand its price, and the Lord will always seek his pound. Of flesh the world may change, but the hardship of your life remains. And in that, there is a strange sort of comfort. You're not alone. The struggle is universal, it's eternal, and somehow, despite everything, it's enough to keep you going. The world around you has changed, but the struggles remain. The plague, though it has claimed countless lives, eventually begins to fade, retreating as suddenly as it arrived. Yet the pain, the grief, and the emptiness it left behind linger like a shadow that will not dissipate. The village is quieter now, the laughter of children replaced by an eerie silence, punctuated only by the occasional sound of labor. The graves of the departed lie in the corners of the village, a somber reminder of what has been lost. But there's something else that's become apparent. The Lord's grip on the land seems to be loosening, ever so slightly. The death toll among the upper classes has been high, and even the wealthiest of lords can no longer escape the plague's reach. They may have fortified themselves behind stone walls, but those walls could not protect them from the disease that swept through the land like wildfire. The once proud estates are now abandoned, their halls echoing with the silence of a once thriving society that has been brought to its knees. It's in this emptiness, this power vacuum, that you begin to sense a shift. It's not immediate, not. Yet the Lord's men still come to collect what's owed, still demand their share of your meager harvest. But there's a new sense of defiance in the air. The peasants, your neighbors, are beginning to question everything. They've seen the Lord's power crumble, watched as he retreated to the safety of his estate, and now they wonder, what if the old ways, the old systems, are no longer necessary? Historians still argue whether it was the rise of the Black Death, or the sheer exhaustion of the peasantry that led to revolts and uprisings across Europe. Some say it was the plague that acted as a catalyst, giving peasants the courage to stand up against the crushing burden of feudalism. Others believe it was the constant suffering and hunger that ultimately pushed people to revolt. Whatever the cause, you can feel it in the air. It's not a loud roar, but a quiet rumble, a murmur of rebellion just beneath the surface. You're not sure if you're ready for rebellion. The very thought of it seems dangerous, even foolish. But there are moments when you catch yourself staring at the Lord's men, at the land you work so hard to tend, and wonder if there's something more, something better. Beyond this endless cycle of labor and deprivation, your family is still reeling from the losses. Your brother, who was once a strong and capable man, is now a shadow of himself, weakened by the sickness that took so many in the village. Your mother, ever the pillar of strength, now spends most of her days lost in thought, her face etched with the sorrow of losing so many of those she loved. And yet, through it all, they persist. They keep working, they keep hoping. But hope, as fleeting as it is, can only carry you so far. You know it as well as anyone. The land is unforgiving. The crops will fail again. The Lord will demand his share. And as much as you wish things could be different, you know deep down that the world hasn't changed as much as you'd like to think. The idea of rebellion begins to take root in your mind. It's a dangerous thought, one that brings a twinge of fear and excitement all at once. You've heard the stories, the rumors of uprisings that have spread through the countryside. Some of them have been brutally crushed by the lords and their armies. Others have succeeded, forcing concessions, even bringing about change. The idea of standing up to the Lord, of demanding better treatment, is terrifying. But it's also empowering. Could you, a simple peasant, stand up for your rights? Could you rally the others, your fellow villagers, and take a stand? It's hard to say. You're not a soldier, not a fighter by nature, but you've lived your life on the edge, scraping by with little more than grit and determination. If there's one thing the plague has taught you, it's that life is too short to stay silent. You can't just sit back and wait for things to get better, because they won't. The Lord will continue to demand more. The land will continue to give you little, and sooner or later, something will break. The next few days pass in a blur of work and thought. You find yourself looking at the Lord's men with a new sense of distaste. They're still here, still collecting, still taking what little you have. But now, when they approach your home, you feel something else, a flicker of defiance, a realization that you don't have to simply bend to their will. You don't have to accept this life as your only option. As you gather your fellow peasants in hushed conversations after the day's work is done, you start to realize that you're not alone in your thoughts. There are others who feel the same. Way others who are tired of the constant struggle, tired of seeing their families suffer year after year. Slowly, word spreads. There are whispers of rebellion, of resistance. The villagers are no longer content to remain quiet in the face of their suffering. They're beginning to take action, and so the murmurs grow louder. It starts with small acts of defiance, a refusal to pay the full tax, a deliberate delay in turning over the harvest, a well-placed word to a lordsman, one that hints at the growing unrest in the village. It's not much, but it's enough to send a message. We won't just roll over anymore. But rebellion is never easy, especially when the lords are as powerful as they are. You've seen it before. Uprisings crushed before they could even begin. The peasants silenced by force and fear. The thought of standing up to the Lord's men sends a shiver down your spine. What if it all goes wrong? What if the Lord sends his soldiers to crush the rebellion before it can even take hold? There's a real danger here, one that could cost you your life. But there's also a sense of purpose, a feeling that maybe, just maybe, you can change something. Maybe you can force the Lord to listen. But for now, it's still just whispers. The rebellion is in its infancy, its power untested, and you can't help but wonder, is it really possible for peasants like you to change the world? Can you really stand up to the system that has held you down for so long? The question lingers, unanswered, but one thing is certain. You're not the same person you were before the plague. You've seen death, and you've faced hunger. You've watched your world fall apart, only to watch it rebuild itself again, bit by bit. The Lord's grip may be loosening, but it's still there. And you're starting to believe, with every fiber of your being, that maybe it's time to take it back. As the days turn into weeks, and the rebellion takes shape in quiet corners of the village, you find yourself caught between fear and hope. The uncertainty of what comes next is terrifying, but the promise of change is even more so. The world you've known, the life you've endured, could be on the verge of a great transformation, one that could finally bring you the freedom you've longed for. But freedom, like everything else in life, comes at a cost. And that cost, you realize, may be far greater than anything you could have ever imagined. As the days drag on, the weight of everything you've experienced, the plague, the loss, the hunger, begins to settle into your bones. You've become accustomed to the endless struggle. The fields don't yield as much as they should, but still, you work because you have no choice. The famine is not yet over, and neither is the fear that hangs over the village. The peasants' lives have always been precarious, but now they seem even more fragile. You don't know if it's the residue of the plague or the constant hunger, gnawing at your insides, but something in you feels different. The spark of rebellion that began as a whisper in your mind has now grown louder. It's no longer just about surviving, it's about fighting back, about regaining something, anything, that the Lord and his men have taken from you. The Lord's men still come by, their eyes full of the same disdain, their voices full of commands. They demand their due, their share of whatever little you've managed to harvest. You can feel their eyes as they appraise you, your fields, your home. They seem to take pleasure in reminding you of your place, reminding you that no matter how hard you work, no matter how much you suffer, you will never rise above the life that's been given to you. It stings, but now it feels different. You're no longer willing to accept it without question. Historians still argue whether the peasant revolts of medieval Europe were sparked solely by material conditions or by the rising consciousness among peasants of their own power. Some argue that the Black Death, by decimating the population, created a labor shortage that shifted power in favor of the peasantry, while others maintain that it was a culmination of years of systemic oppression. What's clear, though, is that peasants, like you working the land, struggling against the harshness of nature and man alike, have had enough. You begin to see it in the eyes of your fellow villagers. They're tired, but not just tired of labor. They're tired of being invisible, tired of living under the boot of the Lord and his men. As the whispers grow louder, they begin to manifest in ways that are hard to ignore. Some refuse to pay their taxes, holding back a portion of their meager harvest, risking punishment in the hopes that something will change. Others are less subtle. They make threats, subtle but growing in intensity. The air feels thick with the promise of change, and though it's still unclear what will happen, there's an undeniable sense of unity. It doesn't take much for the rebellion to catch fire. You see it first in the older men and women, those who have lived through the worst and have nothing left to lose. They have seen the Lord's cruelty, the death, the endless taxation, and they are ready for something to change. Some of them, in fact, are prepared to die for it. Their lives are already a constant battle for survival. They've lost too much to care about the risks now. Soon, you start hearing it from the younger folk. To the ones who have grown up in this suffocating system, the ones who have never known anything else. They're ready for rebellion, ready to face whatever comes next, because they can't imagine a future where things stay the same. The fever of rebellion spreads, each person feeding off the hope of a better life. Every moment of struggle, every inch of pain has brought them to this point. They are done being docile. They want more than this life of hardship, of endless work that only keeps them one step ahead of starvation. The meetings become more frequent. At night, when the day's work is done, you and your fellow peasants gather in secret. It's a dangerous thing to do. The Lord's men could appear at any moment, and if they catch wind of what's happening, they won't hesitate to strike back hard. But even the threat of retaliation isn't enough to stifle the fire that's burning within you and the others. You begin to speak openly now, your voice trembling but strong. What are we waiting for? You ask, your words punctuated by the flicker of torchlight. We've lost everything. Our families, our lands, our dignity. Why should we continue to live like this? Why should we keep giving everything we have, only to get nothing in return? There's a murmur of agreement. You're not alone. Your words are not falling on deaf ears. The people around you, their faces drawn with fatigue and fear, are beginning to believe that something can change. But it's not enough to simply talk. You need action. Action that will send a message to the Lord, to his men, and to the rest of the world. You will not be silent anymore. There's a strange sense of camaraderie in these moments. For once, you don't feel like just another peasant, just another cog in the wheel of this oppressive system. You feel like part of something larger, something powerful. Together, there's strength. Together, you can take on the world. You've heard the stories of peasant revolts, of uprisings that have shaken the very foundations of medieval society. Some were brutally suppressed, while others succeeded in forcing changes. The most famous of these revolts, the Peasants' Revolt in England, in 1381 had been a massive uprising that involved thousands of peasants marching to London to demand an end to serfdom, better living conditions, and fairer treatment. It had all the ingredients of a revolution: anger, desperation, and the will to fight. Though it was eventually crushed, it left a mark on the system, a mark that could never be fully erased. And while your own revolt is smaller in scale, the principles are the same. You want justice. You want equality. You want the opportunity to live a life where you're not constantly at the mercy of forces that you can't control. In the dead of night, you and a small group of trusted allies begin to plan. The first step is simple: stop the Lord's men from taking what they want. You'll need to gather strength to amass what little food you have and keep it from being taken. You'll need to barricade the roads, cut off the Lord's access to the village. It's a small act of defiance, but it's an act that could have far-reaching consequences. But it's not just about the Lord's men. The Lord himself must be confronted. You've heard whispers that he plans to increase the tribute he demands. He's aware of the unrest brewing in the village, and he's preparing to come down hard. He's counting on fear to keep you in line. But fear is a double-edged sword. If you're willing to face it, you might just have a chance. The rebellion grows over time. It doesn't happen all at once, but the more you talk about it, the more people join. A quiet resistance begins to take hold, small acts of defiance turning into something much larger. You can feel it in the air. The rebellion is coming. It's not a matter of if, it's a matter of when. As the days pass and your plan begins to take shape, you can't help but wonder what will happen if it all goes wrong. What if the Lord's men come in full force, with their weapons and their soldiers? What if this rebellion costs you everything: your life, your family, your home? These thoughts weigh heavily on your mind, but then you remember what you've already lost. The plague, the famine, the endless demands. You've already faced the worst of it. And if this rebellion fails, at least you'll have fought for something. You'll have stood up for yourself, for your fellow peasants, and for the hope of a better life. With that, you make a vow to yourself and to your people. This fight is not over. You will not let the Lord and his men take what little you have left. You will stand together, and you will fight until the end. The days continue to drag by, stretching endlessly like the never-ending toil of your life. As you work in the fields, there's a palpable tension in the air, a feeling that something is building, something inevitable. You can't escape it. It's in the way the other villagers look at each other, the way they speak in hushed tones when they think no one's listening. It's in the way that, even though you're still living under the harsh rule of the Lord and his men, there's a quiet, simmering belief that things can and will change. In the early morning, as the mist lifts off the land, you find yourself feeling strangely calm. The work still beckons, the soil still waits to be turned, and yet your heart beats with a sense of purpose that you haven't felt before. Perhaps it's the growing momentum of the rebellion, or perhaps it's just that. You're tired of fearing what the Lord and his men can do. Whatever the reason, you find a new energy deep within yourself, and energy that pushes you to work harder, to rally those around you, and to take the next step toward change. Historians still argue whether peasant revolts were the result of immediate oppression or whether they were fueled by the slow burn of generational suffering. Some say it was the constant poverty and hardship that created the tinder for rebellion. Others argue that it was a sudden spark, like the Black Death, that set everything into motion. Whatever the cause, one thing is clear. These revolts were driven by a powerful desire for justice, for a life where the burden of work didn't fall squarely on the shoulders of the poorest. You're not just rebelling against the Lord, you're rebelling against the entire system that's kept you in chains for so long. The first signs of the rebellion spreading are subtle. The murmurs that began in the quiet corners of the village start to take shape in actions. Some of the younger men refuse to work the fields as hard as they did before, cutting back on the hours they give to the Lord's land. A few families hide their extra food, refusing to hand it over to the Lord's tax collectors. It's not much, but it's a start. Every small act of defiance adds to the building pressure. Every refusal to bow to the old ways makes the rebellion stronger, but you know that these small acts are just the beginning. Eventually, you'll have to confront the Lord directly. The thought sends a thrill through you, but it also fills you with a sense of dread. The Lord is powerful, and his men are even more so. You've seen them strike down peasants who dared to defy him. You know the consequences of rebellion are severe, but you also know that staying quiet, staying submissive, means you and your fellow villagers will continue to live and die under the same oppressive system. And so, the choice is clear. Stand up and fight, or continue to suffer in silence. You begin to speak to the others, your words becoming more impassioned with each passing day. We can't go on like this, you tell them. We've lost so much already: family, friends, land, but the one thing we still have is our will. If we don't fight now, we may never have another chance. Your words are met with nods of agreement. It's not just you now, it's the whole village, there, beginning to understand that survival doesn't mean just working the land. It means standing up for what's right, fighting for a life that isn't dictated by the whims of a lord who doesn't care about them. As the rebellion gains momentum, you feel a sense of urgency building within you. It's not just about withholding food or delaying the Lord's taxes anymore. It's about organizing. It's about taking concrete steps toward something bigger. You begin to meet with your closest allies who've already shown their willingness to stand against the Lord's authority and plan your next move. The plan is simple. Disrupt the Lord's collection of taxes, delay his shipments, and show him that you will no longer be his serfs. You'll take the Lord's men by surprise, hitting them where it hurts, in their ability to collect what's rightfully theirs. If you can stop them long enough, maybe you'll have a chance to force the Lord to listen. You know the risks. If the Lord and his men retaliate, it could mean bloodshed. It could mean the end of everything. But the fear that once gripped your heart now feels like a distant memory. Fear is no longer something that can control you. You've lived with it for so long that it no longer has power over you. The Lord's men can take your crops, they can take your land, but they can't take your will. And that's what the rebellion is all about, reclaiming your will, your agency, your ability to stand tall in the face of oppression. You rally the villagers in secret. At first, it's just a handful of people, those who have already been speaking out, those who have already taken small risks to defy the Lord's orders. But as word spreads, the group grows. What started as a small whisper of defiance now feels like a roaring tide, unstoppable and powerful. It's exhilarating, it's terrifying, but most of all, it's necessary. The night before you plan your first real act of defiance, you gather your group together. You look into their faces and see the same thing you feel. Fear, but also hope. This isn't just about taking action. It's about taking control of your future. It's about changing the course of history, one small action at a time. There's no turning back now. The plan is to ambush the Lord's tax collectors as they come through the village. They'll be traveling in a small group, and you and your comrades will block their path, preventing them from collecting any taxes. It's a simple plan, but it's risky. If the Lord's men don't back down, the consequences could be severe. But you can't think about that now. You can only focus on the moment ahead, the one that will change everything. The night is quiet as you prepare. You gather your weapons, simple tools, farming implements, and a few axes that you've managed to acquire from neighboring villagers. They're not much, but they'll have to do. You know you won't be able to match the Lord's men in numbers, but you don't need to. What you have is strength in unity. And that's all that matters now. When the first light of dawn breaks, you and your group take your positions. The air is thick with anticipation, each of you holding your breath, waiting for the right moment. It feels like a lifetime in the making, and now it's here. As the tax collectors approach, you step forward, your heart pounding in your chest. It's time. The ambush happens quickly. The Lord's men are taken off guard, and before they can react, you've blocked their path, standing tall and resolute. The tension in the air is palpable, but your group holds firm. This is your stand. This is your moment. You raise your voice, speaking loudly enough for the tax collectors to hear. We will not be your serfs any longer, you say. We will not let you take what little we have left. Not today, not ever again. The tax collectors, stunned by the sudden confrontation, hesitate. They've never seen peasants act this way, and they're unsure of what to do. They've never had anyone stand up to them before. But you're not backing down. Your people are with you. And for the first time in your life, you feel a glimmer of true power, the power of defiance. The power of unity. The power of people who refuse to be oppressed any longer. The Lord's men try to reason with you, but you don't listen. The message is clear. This isn't just about one tax collection. This is about everything. This is about reclaiming your rights, your dignity, and your future. The standoff lasts only moments, but it feels like hours. Time stretches out as you stand firm, your heart racing, your breath shallow, the weight of the world on your shoulders. The Lord's men look bewildered, their hands twitching at their sides as they weigh their options. Their leader, a tall, broad-shouldered man with a scar running down his cheek, glares at you, his lips curling in a sneer. But there's a flicker of hesitation in his eyes. A brief moment when he wonders whether it's worth it to press forward or whether it's better to retreat and regroup. For a second, the air is thick with the promise of violence, and you brace yourself for what might come. The small tools and weapons you and your fellow rebels are holding don't stand a chance against the swords and spears of the Lord's men. But there's something far more powerful than steel at play here. The collective will of the peasants. The desperate yearning for change that has been brewing for generations. It's that feeling, the belief that your fight is just, that fuels you and makes you stand tall. Unyielding, the tax collectors exchange glances, uncertain. They're used to enforcing the Lord's will, to riding roughshod over the peasants and taking what's owed without question. But today is different. They see the determination in your eyes, the strength in the faces of your comrades, and something shifts in the dynamic. The fear they've always instilled in the villagers starts to dissipate, replaced by a flicker of doubt. The leader of the tax collectors steps forward, his voice low and dangerous. "You know what happens when peasants rebel," he says, his tone harsh, but there's an edge to it that betrays his own fear. "This is not the way. You will all be punished." But the threat, though familiar, no longer holds the same power over you. You've lived under the shadow of fear for so long that it no longer seems as terrifying as it once did. What do you have to lose? Your life has already been one long struggle. What's a little more risk? What's a little more defiance? The villagers around you tighten their grip on their makeshift weapons, but none of you make a move yet. The message has been sent. It's clear that you're ready to defend your right to live, to fight for something better. The Lord's men begin to back away, sensing that things have changed. The peasant rebellion has ignited, and they know they're not dealing with the same subservient villagers they once commanded. There's a shift happening, and it's one they can't ignore. After a tense silence, the leader of the tax collectors growls in frustration. "Fine," he says, turning to his men. "We'll report this. The Lord will have your heads for this insolence." But before they can do anything else, you make your move. You shout out a rallying cry, a voice that carries through the village, a signal to the others that the time to act has come. The men and women standing alongside you erupt in action, pushing forward, securing the perimeter, and blocking the roads. No one is allowed to pass. It's a bold, audacious move, and it's not without risks. The Lord's men will undoubtedly return with more force, with reinforcements, but for now, you've struck a blow. You've sent a message that will reverberate through the land. This is your land, your village, your life. You are no longer the voiceless laborers who can be trampled on at will. You are a people who have had enough. As the last of the tax collectors retreat, you feel a strange sense of exhilaration. For the first time, you have the upper hand. For the first time, the peasants have stood together, united in a common cause. The world, it seems, is on the brink of change, but the victory is small. It is fleeting. The Lord's men will not stand idly by. The Lord himself will not sit in, his castle, twiddling his fingers and allowing his control to slip. He will send soldiers to crush this rebellion, and they will come with fire and iron. You know this, everyone knows this. But even as the rebellion takes root, there's a stirring in your heart, a new possibility. You realize that this isn't just about one act of defiance. It's about something much larger. This is about freedom. This is about reclaiming the life that's been stolen from you. This is about taking control of your own destiny, of not letting fear or power define you anymore. The village begins to buzz with energy. The once quiet peasants are now speaking openly of rebellion. They meet in secret, in the shadows, planning their next move, fortifying their resolve. It's no longer just a whisper, it's a movement. A revolution is beginning to unfold, and it is being led by the very people who have been crushed under the weight of oppression for centuries. It's not just in your village. Word spreads, slowly at first, but then faster. Other villages, other towns, begin to hear of what has happened here. The seeds of rebellion take root across the land, spreading like wildfire. You hear the rumors of uprisings, of defiance against the lords. The peasants are no longer willing to remain silent. They are rising up all across the land. The Lord, however, will not go down icily. He has soldiers at his command, men who are trained to fight, men who are willing to do whatever it takes to keep the status quo intact. He will not let this rebellion grow. He will come for you and your fellow peasants with everything he has. The next few days are crucial. What you do now will determine the fate of the rebellion. If you succeed, you will change the course of history. If you fail, the punishment will be brutal. You prepare for what's to come. You fortify the village, gather whatever weapons you can, and make your plans for what might be the final confrontation. The Lord's soldiers are sure to come soon, and when they do, you will have to stand your ground. You will have to fight for your freedom. The thought of it both terrifies and excites you. For the first time, you are in control. You are not a victim, but a warrior. In the quiet moments before the storm, you think of all that has led you here. You think of your family, your village, the life you fought so hard to build. You think of the years of suffering, the years of labor, and the silent humiliation you've endured under the Lord's rule. And now, it's time to stand up. It's time to fight. The battle for your freedom has begun. The Lord may be strong, but you are many. You are united. And as the sun sets, you feel a renewed sense of purpose. Tomorrow, the rebellion will continue. And no matter the outcome, you know one thing. You've already won. You've taken control. You've dared to dream of something better. And that, in itself, is a victory. As dawn breaks, you feel the weight of anticipation settle deep in your bones. The world is quiet, deceptively so, as if nature itself is holding its breath. The land, the same land you fought so hard to reclaim, seems to pulse with tension. Your village, once silent in its submission, now vibrates with energy. Every step you take feels heavy with purpose. Your comrades, though just as nervous as you, move with the same quiet resolve, their eyes bright with the fire of rebellion. The Lord's soldiers are coming. It's inevitable. You know they won't leave you and your village untouched. You've defied them once, and there's no way they'll let it slide. They'll come to punish, to crush this uprising, and you're ready to face them head on. But even as you prepare for the coming clash, a part of you wonders, will it be enough? Can the rebellion, built on nothing more than your will to survive, truly stand up to the weight of the Lord's army? The night before, you and your fellow villagers held a meeting. The plan was simple. You would barricade the village's main roads, trapping the soldiers inside. With luck, the village's surrounding hills would give you an advantage. Soldiers who tried to flank would be met with arrows from the heights above. The element of surprise is on your side, and if the plan works, you might just manage to hold your ground long enough to force the Lord's men to reconsider their approach. But it's all a gamble. Everything hinges on timing, on precision, on unity. The air is thick with the scent of wood and earth, the smell of freshly cut branches that will be used to fortify your defenses. You've set up barricades at the village's edges, forming a ring of protection that will hopefully delay the Lord's soldiers long enough for you to act. Everyone has a role to play. The young men and women are the scouts, watching for any signs of movement in the distance. The older, more experienced members of the village are tasked with fortifying the barricades and organizing the lines. The rest of you, the heart of the rebellion, stand ready for whatever comes next. For a brief moment, as you look over your fellow villagers, you feel a rush of pride. These are your people, your comrades. Together, you've come a long way from the helpless, subjugated lives you once led. Together, you have something the Lord and his men can never take away from you. A shared purpose, a shared fight. There is no turning back now. The time for hesitation is long past. The sun rises higher, casting long shadows over the village. Your group gathers near the barricades, eyes scanning the horizon. Your heart beats faster with each passing moment. The soldiers could be here at any time. Your breath is shallow, your hands are clammy. But there's something else, a sense of resolve, of determination that grows stronger with every beat of your heart. The fear, though present, doesn't control you anymore. It's no longer just fear, it's the fire of revolution. Then it happens. A rider, silhouetted against the rising sun, emerges from the distance, followed by a small group of soldiers on horseback. They're coming. You can see the dust they kick up as they approach. It's not the full force of the Lord's army yet, but it's a start. You've been waiting for this moment for days, but now that it's here, your thoughts scatter. The adrenaline surges. This is it. This is the moment when everything changes. Your voice shakes, but you shout the command to your comrades. Prepare yourselves. The first soldiers arrive, their horses snorting as they stop at the edge of the village. They look at you, just a few peasants standing at the ready, but as they gaze at your faces, they see the truth. You're not afraid anymore. You're not the meek, submissive workers who cower before them. You're the heart of something larger, something stronger, and they can feel it in the air. For a moment, there's a standoff. The soldiers exchange uneasy glances. It's not what they expected. Peasants aren't supposed to stand up to soldiers. They're not supposed to block the roads, to fight back. And yet, here you are, the leader of the soldiers, a man whose face is as weathered as his armor, steps forward. His voice is low, but it carries the weight of authority. Move aside, he commands, and let us pass. You're making a mistake. You raise your chin, meeting his gaze with a steady look. This is our land, you reply. You will not take what is ours any longer. The soldiers scoff, but there's hesitation in their eyes. You've crossed a line, and they know it. The man's hand rests on the hilt of his sword, his fingers twitching as if he's deciding whether to strike. You feel the tension build in the pit of your stomach, a sense of dread creeping in. The rebellion could end here, before it even begins. But there's no turning back. Move them, the soldier leader growls. And with that, the first wave of soldiers begins to advance. But you and your comrades are ready. You're standing firm, unyielding. The barricades hold strong, the villages, narrow streets making it difficult for the soldiers to maneuver. You can hear the grunts of the soldiers, their frustration growing as they push against the barricades. It's not a battle of strength, but of strategy. You've built these defenses with care, knowing the village better than anyone. The soldiers' horses struggle to break through, their hooves pounding against the earth, but they can't gain the upper hand. You've created a chokehold, and for now, it's working. But the soldiers are persistent, and their numbers will grow. It's a matter of time before they realize that they can't take the village with brute force alone. They'll need strategy, and that's where the real battle begins. For hours, you and your comrades hold your ground. The sun climbs higher, its heat pressing down on your neck, but you ignore it. The fight is more important. The barricades hold, the villagers stand firm, and for the first time in your life, you feel like the weight of the world has shifted. You may not have the strength or weapons of the soldiers, but you have something they can't take: unity. And for now, it's enough. But just as you think you might win, just as you think you might actually be able to force the soldiers into retreat, something changes. The sound of more hooves reaches your ears. You look up, and in the distance, you see more soldiers approaching. This time, they're not just on horseback. They're marching, their armor glinting in the sunlight. Their numbers growing by the minute. The battle has only just begun. You feel a knot form in your stomach as the realization sets in. The Lord is sending his full force. This isn't just a skirmish anymore. This is war, and you and your fellow villagers are about to face the brunt of it. As the reinforcements arrive, you brace yourself for what's to come. The soldiers are coming, and this fight, this rebellion, has just become far more dangerous. The odds are no longer in your favor. The Lord's men are many, and their swords are sharp. But one thing remains: you have the power to make a stand. And that's more than you ever thought possible. You exchange a glance with your comrades, and you all know what needs to be done. The first step is to hold the line. The second step is to show the Lord, to show the world that peasants can rise, that they can stand against tyranny. Whatever happens next, you will face it together. The battle is on, and you've already won. You've taken the first step toward freedom. The rest of the world can't take that away. As the sound of more soldiers thunders across the field, your heart skips a beat. They're coming, there's no denying it now. The reinforcements have arrived, their armor gleaming in the morning sun like a metallic wall, and they move in. Formation with the precision and discipline of trained soldiers. There are more of them than you ever imagined, and you can feel the weight of the moment sink into your chest. The odds are now stacked firmly against you. The barricades, no matter how well built, won't hold forever. You have no cavalry, no real weapons, and only your sheer will to survive. But in this moment, in this terrifying, maddening silence, you realize something deep inside. You have something more valuable than steel. You have hope, you have unity, and for the first time, you feel like you have the power to change your fate. The soldiers advance, slowly at first, their steps heavy, deliberate. It's a tactic designed to intimidate, to break your resolve before the real fighting begins. And for a moment, you feel it, the creeping doubt, the cold grip of fear that threatens to rise up in your throat. But then, you look around. You see the faces of your fellow villagers, young and old, men and women, each one standing tall, resolute, ready to fight for the future of their families, their land. They're with you. You're not alone. The leader of the soldiers, mounted, high on his horse, calls out in a commanding voice. You're outnumbered, peasants. Stand down now, and maybe we'll spare your lives. Keep resisting, and there will be bloodshed. You don't flinch. You don't show fear. You know that the worst has already come for you and your people. There is nothing left to lose. Your voice rises to meet his, steady and strong. We're not your serfs anymore. We won't bend and we won't break. We'll fight for what's ours. For a moment, the soldiers hesitate. They've never faced a rebellion like this before. Peasants are supposed to cower. They're supposed to surrender without question. But these peasants aren't like those who've come before. They've seen the worst of it, the plague, the famine, the cruelty of the lords, and they've survived. They've fought for their survival. And now they're ready to fight for their freedom. The silence that follows is deafening. You know, this is the turning point. You can't afford to back down now. Not when you've come this far. The air feels electric, charged with the weight of the moment. Your eyes lock with the leader of the soldiers, and for a brief second, you see a flicker of uncertainty in his eyes. He's never had to deal with peasants like you. His men are trained for war, yes, but they're not prepared for a people fighting for their lives, fighting for their future. You can see if the hesitation, and it's the crack in their armor that you need. You take a step forward, your voice rising above the stillness. We're not afraid of you. We've fought too long to survive, and we'll fight now for our right to live. The Lord's reign ends today. Not tomorrow, not next year. Today. The soldiers are still uncertain. The commander looks to his men, and then back to you, his face tight with frustration. He spurs his horse forward, shouting commands. Take them down, do it now. And then it all erupts. The soldiers charge, but your villagers don't scatter. They stand their ground, holding their makeshift weapons, axes, pitchforks, and whatever tools they can find. You've worked the land with your hands for years, now. You wield those hands in defense of everything you've ever known. The first wave of soldiers crashes against the barricades, their swords clashing with the wooden posts and the metal tools you've set in place. The ground shakes as the soldiers try to break through, but your lines hold firm. The barricades, though rudimentary, are designed to slow them down, and they do just that. As the soldiers struggle, your comrades use the opportunity to launch their attack. You stand at the front, your heart pounding as you swing your pitchfork into the air, striking one of the soldiers. The moment your weapon connects, there's a rush of adrenaline, a surge of energy that pushes you forward. The soldier staggers back, and for a split second, you feel like you've actually won something, that the world is finally on your side. But it's a fleeting victory. The soldiers are relentless. They fight with the precision of those who've trained for battle, while your people fight with the fury of those who've nothing left to lose. The clash of metal against wood, the cries of the injured, and the shouts of defiance ring out in the air. It's chaos, a storm of bodies and weapons as the battle rages on. For every soldier you take down, it feels like two more appear in their place. You watch as a fellow villager, one of the older men, someone who's worked beside you for years, falls to the ground, his chest pierced by a spear. The world seems to stop for a second as you watch him die, the finality of it hitting you like a physical blow. You feel the weight of his death settle in your chest, a grief that threatens to swallow you whole. But you can't stop. You can't let it break you. His sacrifice, like that of all the others who will fall today, cannot be in vain. You charge forward, ignoring the sting of exhaustion and pain, swinging your pitchfork with everything you have left. You fight for him. You fight for the villagers who are still standing. You fight for the future that's slipping through your fingers, but which you're determined to hold on to. As the battle rages, the soldiers begin to realize that their numbers, their armor, their training, all of it might not be enough. The peasants, the villagers, are fighting for more than just survival. They're fighting for freedom. They're fighting for their dignity, for the right to live on their terms. And that's something soldiers, no matter how well trained, can't take away. The leader of the soldiers grows desperate. His voice cuts through the chaos, commanding his men to regroup, to form a defensive line. But even as he shouts orders, the peasants press forward, their resolve unwavering. The barricades are holding, the soldiers are faltering, and slowly, imperceptibly, the tide of the battle begins to shift. For the first time, you see the cracks in the soldiers' armor. Their disciplined march starts to break down. Some retreat, others hesitate, and in the chaos, some begin to question whether this battle is worth fighting. And in that moment, you know victory is within reach. But just as you feel the glimmer of hope, a new wave of soldiers arrives. The Lord has sent reinforcements, and now you're outnumbered again. The new soldiers march with the determination of those who are accustomed to victory. They push forward, overwhelming the barricades with sheer force. You watch as the tide turns once more. The air grows heavy with the sound of clashing metal, the cries of the wounded, the desperate shouts of your comrades. You fight harder, but the numbers are against you. The soldiers are advancing, and with each step they gain ground. The rebellion, which had seemed so full of promise, now teeters on the edge of defeat. But in this moment, as the battle seems to turn against you, you realize something. The rebellion, no matter what happens, has already changed the world. The peasants, the villagers, the people who once toiled silently under the Lord's yoke, have proven something. They are not just workers. They are not just subjects to be ruled. They are people who can stand, people who can fight. And that is a victory in itself. Even as the battle rages on, you know that this rebellion has already carved its mark in history. The lords may win today. The soldiers may crush your village, but the spark of defiance is alive. It will spread. It will grow. The world is changing, and the peasants have found their voice. And that, no matter what, can never be taken away. As the sun sets, bloodied and bruised, you find yourself standing among the remnants of the battlefield, the silence almost deafening in its aftermath. The air smells of sweat, blood, and smoke, a lingering reminder of the fury that's just past. The ground beneath you is stained, the soil now soaked in the price of the fight. The battle has taken a heavy toll on both sides. You can see the soldiers retreating, their formation fractured, their morale shattered. But the cost for the peasants has been just as great. Bodies litter the ground villagers you've known for years. Comrades who fought beside you, their faces now lifeless and still. You can't bring them back, no matter how hard you try to grasp the fragile thread of hope that still clings to your heart. Victory feels hollow. There's a bitter taste in your mouth as you look at the fallen. Each death weighs heavily on your conscience, but it's also a reminder of why you fought in the first place. For freedom, for dignity, for a future that doesn't belong to the lords or the soldiers, but to the people. As the dust settles, the village is eerily quiet. The soldiers have retreated for now, but you know they will be back. The Lord, too, will not let this insurrection go unanswered. The rebellion, though it has carved a mark into the history of this land, is far from over. The battle has been won, but the war is still raging. You move among the injured, offering what little help you can. There are too many wounds, too many broken bodies, and not enough hands to tend to them all. The villagers who are still standing work together, binding wounds with whatever cloth they can find, trying to save those who still have a chance to survive. But the faces of the dead linger in your mind, the faces of those who gave everything for a cause that, at this moment, seems so fragile. The village that once seemed so vibrant, so full of life, is now a shell of itself. The buildings that stood as symbols of the people's resilience are now battered and broken. The streets, which were once filled with the sound of laughter and the hum of daily life, are now hauntingly quiet. It's as if the very spirit of the village has been stolen away in the chaos of war. Yet, even in the aftermath, there's a flicker of something more, something that can't be easily extinguished. You walk past the homes you've known all your life, your feet heavy as you move through the wreckage. The air is thick with grief. But beneath it, there's something else, a sense of determination, of unity, that won't be easily broken. The rebellion, though far from victorious in a traditional sense, has accomplished something significant. It has shown the Lord, the soldiers, and even the world that the peasants are not as powerless as they were once believed to be. They have seen your strength, your refusal to yield, and it has shaken them. But that doesn't change the fact that you've lost. The Lord's men will return. They'll bring reinforcements, and they'll come with even more force than before. The rebellion, as it stands, is vulnerable. The road ahead is uncertain, and the future is as fragile as the hopes of those who still fight. The question now is simple. Can the people who have risen up against their oppressors continue to stand against them? Or will they be crushed once and for all? You don't have the answers. No one does. All you know is that you cannot let the sacrifices of those who've fallen be in vain. You cannot let their deaths be forgotten. The rebellion, though it has cost you dearly, has awakened something deep within you. It's a fire that burns brighter now than ever before. The soldiers may have retreated, but you know that won't last. Soon the Lord will send more men to finish what they started. It's a harsh reality, but one you've come to accept. What matters now is how you and the remaining villagers respond. You cannot afford to let fear take hold again. The rebellion has already proven that you have the power to change things, but it's not enough to stop now. It's not enough to win one battle. You need to keep pushing, to keep fighting. But even as you make that vow to yourself, the weight of reality presses in. Your village has been devastated, and the few survivors are weary. The bodies of your fallen comrades lie in the streets, reminders of the harsh cost of rebellion. Your people, though filled with courage and resolve, are battered and broken. How long can they continue? How long before the Lord crushes this revolt completely? Your thoughts are interrupted by the sound of footsteps behind you. You turn to see one of your closest comrades, older man, grizzled from years of labor and hardship. Approaching, his face is grim, but there's a flicker of something else in his eyes. It's the same fire that you feel in your chest, the same refusal to let the rebellion die here. You did well, he says, his voice rough but steady. We've lost much, but we've gained something too. The Lord will hear of this. He'll know that we're not afraid anymore. You nod, the weight of his words sinking in. We've only just begun, you say, your voice low but firm. The fight's not over. We can't let it end like this. He looks around at the destruction, his eyes softening for a moment. No, we can't. But we also can't keep going on like this. We need to regroup. We need to heal. We need more people, more support. We can't win this war with just what we have here. His words hit hard. The rebellion has been strong, yes, but it's not enough. The Lord has resources, money, soldiers, supplies that you simply don't have. You may have the spirit, the drive, the unity, but that alone isn't enough to sustain a long-term war. You need more fighters, more food, more support. But where do you find it? The answer comes to you slowly, like a flicker in the dark. There are other villagers, other peasants. They've seen what you've done. They've heard the whispers of rebellion. If they could join you, if they could stand with you, then perhaps you could push back against the Lord's overwhelming force. But convincing them won't be easy. They're afraid. They've seen what happens when peasants rise up. The Lord doesn't hesitate to slaughter those who dare to challenge him. But there's a chance. There's always a chance. You and your comrade exchange a look, an unspoken understanding passing between you. It's time to spread the word. Time to gather the strength of those who still believe in the cause. You can't stop now. You can't let the fire go out. Let's do it, you say, your voice resolute. Let's rally the others. We'll show them that we can win this. We'll show them that we can take back what's ours. And so, with the few remaining villagers who are still able to fight, you begin to make plans. You'll travel to the neighboring villages, to the places where people are still living in silence, in fear. You'll tell them your story. You'll tell them about the rebellion, about the battle that was fought, about the lives that were lost. And you'll ask them to join you. You'll ask them to stand with you, because the rebellion isn't just about your village anymore. It's about the people. It's about the peasants who have suffered for too long. It's about the future, and though the journey ahead is uncertain, though the price may be steep, you know one thing: the fight is far from over. It's just beginning. As the days unfold after the battle, you can feel the gravity of the situation pressing heavily on your shoulders. The village is still standing, but its heart has been shaken. The cost of the rebellion has been steep. Too many good people lost. Too many families left broken. The world outside seems unforgiving, and yet you know deep down that what you've started cannot be stopped. You, the rebels, the villagers, you're a part of something now, a movement that's bigger than any one person. Your defiance has sparked something that won't just fade away. The task at hand is daunting. It's one thing to fight and win a single battle. It's another to sustain a rebellion, to keep it alive when everything around you threatens to crush it. The Lord's army may have retreated for now, but that doesn't mean they've given up. They'll regroup and they'll return stronger, more determined to quash the rebellion before it spreads any further. The only way to ensure survival is to find new allies, to grow the rebellion beyond your village's borders. But that's easier said than done. As you gather with your fellow survivors, there's an unspoken understanding. The time has come to go beyond the confines of your village. The rebellion cannot stay isolated. If you are to truly stand a chance against the might of the Lord's forces, you need more. More fighters, more food, more weapons, and, crucially, more villagers willing to join the cause. The decision is made. You and a few trusted companions will travel to neighboring villages, spreading the word of the rebellion. You will tell them about the fight, about the lives lost, about the opportunity for change. You will ask them to take up arms and join. You, to rise up and fight for a better future. But you know it won't be easy. The fear of reprisal is a powerful thing. The Lord's grip on the land is still strong, and the consequences of rebellion are severe. Many of the villagers you visit will be hesitant, scared of what the Lord will do if they rise up. Some may not even believe you, doubting that a small village like yours could ever stand against the Lord's army. It's your job to convince them, to show them that it is possible to fight back. You must be their voice of hope, even when it feels like there is none. The journey ahead is long, and you don't know what you'll find when you reach the first village. But you cannot turn back now. You've already come too far as you travel. The landscape begins to shift. The fields, once familiar and comforting, now feel vast and foreign. Each step takes you further away from the village you've called home, from the life you've known. The road is harsh, and the journey is filled with obstacles, thick forests, muddy streams, and the ever-present fear of soldiers patrolling the countryside. But you press on. The faces of those you've lost in the battle, the memory of the fallen comrades, keep you moving forward. They didn't die in vain. They died for this, for a chance to change the world. Your first stop is a small village, nestled in a valley, far from the Lord's stronghold. The people here are wary when you arrive, eyeing you with suspicion. They've heard rumors of the rebellion, but they're unsure whether it's worth the risk to join. The Lord's army has always been brutal when dealing with insurgents, and they know that if they're caught, the consequences will be severe. But there's a glimmer of hope in their eyes. Hope that the rebellion could be the change they've been waiting for. You speak to them, recounting the events of the battle, the struggle, the triumph. You tell them about the unity of the village, how the peasants stood together, shoulder to shoulder, and fought for their rights. We can do this, you say, your voice steady and strong. We can rise up, but we need to stand together. We need you. There's silence for a moment as the villagers digest your words. Some look at each other, exchanging uncertain glances. The fear is palpable, but so is the longing for change. After a tense pause, the village elder steps forward. She's a woman who has seen the hardships of life, the hunger, the poverty, the years of labor. Her eyes are hard, but there's something softer in her gaze now, something like hope. We've lived in fear for too long, she says quietly. Maybe it's time to stop hiding. Maybe it's time to fight. The decision is made. Slowly, but surely, the village agrees to join the rebellion. They offer what they can: food, weapons, whatever they've managed to save over the years. It's not much, but it's a start. You can feel the weight of their commitment in the air. The rebellion is no longer just your villagers' fight. It's theirs too. As you continue your journey, you visit more villages, each one with its own story, its own reasons for either joining or refusing the cause. Some villagers resist, frightened by the consequences, while others join eagerly, inspired by the strength of the rebellion. But one thing is clear: the rebellion is growing. The spark has ignited a fire, and it's spreading faster than you could have ever imagined. You return to your village after several weeks, exhausted but hopeful. The journey has been long, and the road ahead is still fraught with danger, but you have more allies now, more strength. The rebellion is no longer a small, isolated movement. It's a force to be reckoned with. The news of the expansion of the rebellion spreads like wildfire. The Lord's men are taken aback by the sudden surge of resistance. They thought they had crushed the rebellion when they defeated your village, but they were wrong. The rebellion has only grown stronger. The peasants, once weak and divided, are now united, and they are ready to fight back. But with this growth comes more danger. The Lord, who has underestimated the strength of the people, will retaliate. The next battle will be even harder, even bloodier. You know that the Lord will stop at nothing to crush this rebellion. But you also know that you can't stop now. The rebellion has become something much bigger than you ever expected. It's no longer just about survival. It's about something greater, the chance to change the world. The moment has come. The rebellion, fueled by the sacrifices of the fallen, the unity of the people, and the fire of hope, is ready to face the Lord's army once more. But this time, you're not going into battle alone. This time, the peasants are united, and the Lord's soldiers will know that they are not fighting an army of individuals. They are fighting an entire people, a force that cannot be crushed, no matter how much the Lord tries. The final confrontation is on the horizon. And though the road ahead is uncertain, one thing is clear: the rebellion will not go quietly into the night. It will stand, it will fight, and it will win. The future is in your hands. The future is in the hands of the people. As you prepare for what lies ahead, there's a strange calm that settles over you. The anticipation of the final confrontation with the Lord's army has been building for days now. The campfires flicker in the cool night air, casting long shadows over the gathered rebels, peasants from villages near and far, united by a singular goal. The sounds of whispered conversations echo in the air, punctuated by the occasional clink of armor and the rustling of makeshift tents. This isn't an army in the traditional sense, no grand generals or knights leading the charge, but there's a resolve here, an energy that feels as if it could shatter mountains. The mood among the rebels is a mixture of nervousness, excitement, and fear, but above it all, there's a strong undercurrent of unity. For so long, you and your fellow peasants have lived in the shadows, bowing to the will of those who thought they could rule you without consequence. You have been the laborers, the workers, the quiet masses, content with the bare minimum just to survive. But now, you are so much more than that. You are a people who have had enough, and the time has come to demand the future you deserve. The stories of your rebellion have spread across the land, carried on the wind and the voices of those who joined the cause. Villagers that once thought of themselves as powerless are now brimming with fighters. Men and women who have thrown aside their fears and taken up arms for the very first time. They've heard the call, and they've come to join you in this fight. There is no turning back now. You have crossed a threshold, one that has irrevocably changed the fate of your people. But you are also keenly aware of the danger ahead. The Lord's army is formidable. They are trained warriors, disciplined and ruthless, their loyalty to their master unwavering. They will not let this rebellion go unpunished. They will come at you with everything they have, and in the face of that, you and your comrades must be prepared to stand your ground. The plan is simple, too simple, perhaps, but it's the best you can do with the resources you have. You've fortified your position, built defenses, and prepared for an ambush. But there's only so much you can do with makeshift weapons and limited supplies. Your strength lies not in your armaments, but in your unity, your determination. If the Lord's army underestimates the power of a united people, they will soon learn their mistake. As dawn breaks, you gather with your fellow rebels, your heart pounding in your chest. The sun rises slowly over the horizon, casting a warm glow across the land. It's a beautiful morning, one that seems too peaceful for the storm that is about to descend. But that's the way of things, isn't it? Life is always quiet before the battle. You look around at the faces of those who stand beside you, old and young, men and women, all of them willing to lay down their lives for the future of their children, for a chance at a life free from the Lord's oppression. You see the same fire in their eyes that burns in your own hearts. And though the odds are not in your favor, though the battle ahead will be hard and bloody, you know this. You are not just fighting for survival anymore. You are fighting for freedom, for justice, and for the right to live without fear. The enemy arrives just as the sun reaches its peak in the sky. The ground trembles beneath the sound of the soldiers' march. The earth shakes with the weight of their armor, the clinking of swords, the sound of hooves pounding against the dirt. The Lord's army has arrived, and they have come in full force. From your vantage point, you can see them rows upon rows of soldiers, marching in perfect formation, their banners held high, their armor glinting in the sunlight. They're imposing a force to be reckoned with. The contrast between them and your ragtag army of peasants couldn't be more apparent. You have no cavalry, no knights, no archers of renown. What you do have is each other, and that, you hope, will be enough. The soldiers stop in their tracks as they approach your village's defenses. Their leader, a tall, intimidating figure on horseback, looks down at you with disdain, his eyes narrowed. He seems to take a moment to appraise you, sizing you up as though you were nothing more than an insignificant annoyance to be swatted away. But this time, he's wrong. You think you can defeat me. The soldier leader calls out, his voice booming across the battlefield. You think you can defeat the Lord's army with nothing but pitchforks and sticks. You're nothing but cattle, peasants. You have no place in this world. You stand tall, your chest rising with the weight of the words. We have no place in your world, you call back, your voice carrying across the field. We've lived in fear for too long, and we won't bow to you any longer. This is our land, our future, and we will fight for it. His gaze hardens, and he nods to his soldiers. Then die for it. The battle begins in a chaotic rush, the clash of metal against metal ringing through the air like thunder. The Lord's soldiers charge forward, their swords flashing as they strike at the makeshift barricades. The rebels meet them head, fighting with all their might, their courage and resolve holding firm in the face of overwhelming odds. For every soldier that falls, another takes his place. And though the peasants are outmatched in numbers and experience, there's something in the air that gives them strength. They fight not because they have to, but because they believe in something greater than themselves. They fight for their families, for their children, for their dignity. And no matter how many soldiers come, they will not stop. The line will not break. You find yourself in the thick of the fighting, your heart pounding, your body moving almost on instinct. The weight of the pitchfork in your hands feels comforting, familiar. The shouts of your comrades and the clash of weapons fill your ears. The adrenaline surges, and for a moment, you lose track of time, caught up in the frenzy of the battle. It's no longer about tactics, no longer about survival. It's about standing your ground, about showing the Lord and his men that you will not be cowed. The battle rages on for what feels like hours. The sun hangs high in the sky, beating down on the combatants. Sweat mingles with blood as both sides fight with all the ferocity they can muster. But it's clear now something has shifted. The Lord's soldiers, though trained and armed, are beginning to show signs of hesitation. They weren't prepared for this. They weren't prepared for peasants who refused to run, who refused to die quietly. You see it in their eyes as they falter, their advance slowing as they realize that the rebellion is not some fleeting moment of defiance. It is a force, a movement that cannot be wiped away with brute strength alone. The fear that had gripped them at the beginning of the battle is beginning to surface again, but now it is not fear of Hewitt, is fear of what your rebellion represents. The Lord's soldiers retreat, their ranks breaking as they struggle to maintain control. The sight of their hesitation emboldens the rebels, and the pressure mounts. With every passing moment, the momentum shifts in your favor. The Lord's men, who had once been so confident in their superiority, now begin to question their own resolve. The rebellion is growing stronger with every breath you take. And then, after what feels like an eternity, it happens. The soldiers turn and flee, their retreating footsteps pounding against the earth as they break formation. The rebels surge forward, following them, not with bloodlust, but with the energy of a people who have won the battle of their lives. The Lord's army, though still formidable, is no match for the unity, the spirit, the resolve that has fueled this rebellion from the very beginning. Victory is yours. But it's not just the land, or the battle, or the bloodshed that has won the day. It is something deeper. It is the realization that you and your fellow rebels have taken back control of your own fate. You have fought not just for survival, but for the future, for the hope that, someday, no peasant will ever again be forced to live in fear. The dust settles on the battlefield, and as you look around at the fallen soldiers and the survivors, you realize something. This is just the beginning. The road ahead will be long, and there will be more battles to fight. But for today, for this moment, you have won, and that is enough. The victory is hard-earned and bittersweet. The ground is littered with the wreckage of the battle-broken weapons, discarded shields, and the bodies of both the fallen soldiers and the rebels who fought alongside you. The village, though still standing, bears the scars of the struggle. Walls are cracked, fences are broken, and the fields where you and your comrades once worked now lie in ruins. But despite the devastation, there's a quiet victory in the air, a feeling of something irreversibly changed. The rebellion has claimed its first hard-won victory, and the world has been altered forever. As the dust begins to settle, the survivors of the battle gather in the village square. The wounded are being cared for as best as possible, their wounds tended by those who still have the strength to help. The grief, the weight of the loss, hangs heavily in the air. You can see it in the eyes of those who have fought by your side, the faces of those who have seen the cost of this rebellion. But beneath the sorrow, there's something else. There's hope. Hope that, for the first time, the peasants have stood together, not as weak subjects under the Lord's thumb, but as a force that can change the world. You stand among your comrades, surveying the battlefield, and your thoughts drift to the future. The Lord's men may have been driven back, but the war is far from over. You know that the Lord will not tolerate this defeat. He will regroup. He will send more soldiers. He will try to reclaim what he has lost. But you also know that the rebellion has gained something irreplaceable: momentum. The Lord can raise armies, but he cannot replicate the unity and fire that burns in the hearts of the people who are fighting for their freedom. As the hours pass, the village begins to rebuild. The wounds of the past few days are fresh, and it will take time to heal not just the bodies of the fallen, but the spirit of the community. You've lost so much friends, family, comrades, but you've also gained something you never thought possible: a sense of power, a sense of agency. You've proven to yourself and to everyone else that the Lord's rule is not unbreakable. And with every village that joins your cause, with every act of defiance, the rebellion becomes more powerful. But the cost of that power is clear. You walk through the village, your boots heavy with the weight of what's happened, and you see the toll this battle has taken on the people. The wounds are both physical and emotional. For every peasant who stands tall, unbowed, there's another, who is broken, lost in grief or fear. The rebellion has shattered the world of the village, and though the rebellion has gained ground, the cost has been steep. In the midst of all this, a quiet realization begins to take root in your mind. This isn't just about the Lord. It's not just about defeating an enemy on the battlefield. It's about creating a new world, one where peasants like you aren't bound by the whims of the rich and powerful. It's about breaking the chains that have held generations in servitude. It's about showing the world that the people who till the land, who work the fields, who have suffered the most, are the ones who can lead the charge for change. But how? How do you sustain this fight? How do you build a future when you've spent so much of your life simply trying to survive? You realize that the rebellion cannot survive on spirit alone. It needs structure. It needs leadership. It needs a way to organize and support itself, to provide for its people and defend itself against the inevitable counterattack that will come. And that is where the real challenge begins. You gather your fellow leaders, the ones who fought. Beside you, the ones who've proven themselves, not only in battle, but in their commitment to the cause. There are a few familiar faces among them: the village elder, the sharp-minded woman who has been instrumental in organizing the resistance, the older man whose knowledge of tactics has proven invaluable. Together, you form a councillor group of leaders who will work to guide the rebellion and ensure its survival. You know that you can't do this alone. This fight is too big, too important. You need help. You need strategies, resources, and most importantly, you need more people. The villagers who have joined the cause so far are united by the fire of revolution. But many of them are still untrained, unprepared for the long struggle that lies ahead. You need to train them, to organize them into a fighting force that can stand up to the Lord's army in the long term. As you sit down with the council, the reality of the situation becomes even clearer. You don't have the luxury of time. The Lord will not wait. He will regroup, raise new forces, and strike again with everything he has. If you are to have any hope of victory, you need to consolidate your power, build your forces, and prepare for the next phase of the rebellion. We need to find more villagers, you say, your voice steady but filled with the weight of the task at hand. We need to convince them to join us, to show them that this rebellion isn't just a fight for survival, it's a fight for freedom, and we need to arm them. The village elder nods, her expression grave. It won't be easy. There are villagers that will be too afraid to join us. The Lord has his eyes everywhere. He controls so much of the land. I know, you reply, clenching your fists, but we can't stop. The more we grow, the stronger we become. If we can win over enough villagers, we can begin to challenge the Lord's power directly. We can strike at his resources, his supply lines, and force him to reckon with us. The others around the table exchange nods. Everyone knows what's at stake. The rebellion is not just about one village anymore. It's about all of them. And you cannot afford to lose the momentum you've worked so hard to build. You spend the next few days traveling between villages, speaking to the people, urging them to join the rebellion. You tell them about the victory, about how the lords, men were driven back, about how the peasants rose up and stood together. You show them that it's possible to fight back, to stand up against tyranny. Some villagers respond enthusiastically, offering their support, their people, their resources. But there are others, more fearful, more hesitant, who remain unconvinced. They've seen too much violence, too many failed uprisings, too many broken promises. And while they're sympathetic to the cause, they're not ready to risk everything for something that might not succeed. Each refusal is a setback, but it doesn't stop you. For every village that turns you away, there's another that opens its doors. Slowly, painfully slowly, the rebellion begins to grow. The message spreads through whispers, through travelers, through the hearts of those who have lived under the Lord's boot for far too long. The flame that started in your village is spreading across the land, a light that can no longer be extinguished. As you travel, you feel the weight of responsibility growing heavier. The rebellion is no longer just a spark. It's a fire, and fires need fuel to burn. You have to keep it going, keep it alive, even in the face of danger and doubt. The Lord will come for you, and when he does, you must be ready. You return to your village, your heart full of resolve. The rebellion is growing. The next battle will be even harder, but it will also be the moment that determines the fate of the people. Will you win? Will you lose? The future is uncertain, but one thing is clear. The rebellion will not die quietly. It will stand, and it will fight until the very end. Days turn into weeks, and weeks into months. The world feels like it's speeding up, like the forces of fate are pulling you forward faster than you can run. The rebellion, which once seemed like a desperate spark in the dark, has grown into something powerful, something undeniable. But even as the fire spreads, there are moments when it feels as if everything is teetering on the edge of collapse. You've seen victories, yes. The villagers are rallying behind you. The rebellion is growing. But you've also seen the toll it takes. The cost is higher now. Each village that joins the cause brings more hope, but also more responsibility, more risk. Your village once. The starting point for this rebellion feels like a distant memory now. The headquarters of the rebellion has shifted. There are outposts across the land, hidden in forests, in caves, in towns on the fringes of the Lord's domain. No one can ever be too sure of where to find you anymore. The Lord's soldiers are actively hunting down rebel leaders, trying to snuff out this wildfire before it spreads too far. And the harder the Lord tries to stomp it out, the brighter the flame burns. In the midst of all this, you feel the weight of leadership heavier than ever. You never asked to be a leader. You never thought your voice would carry the power to move a whole rebellion. But here you are, caught in a struggle that's bigger than anything you could have imagined. You see the faces of the people, their hunger for change, and it fills you with determination. But you also see the fear, the uncertainty, and it fills you with doubt. You wonder how long you can keep pushing forward, how much longer the rebellion can stand. The Lord, meanwhile, is biding his time. He's no fool. He's seen the uprising spread across his land, and he knows that his grip is slipping. His advisors whisper about the threat to his rule, about the need to strike fast, strike hard. His castle is well defended, yes, but he's not immune to the growing unrest. The rebellion isn't just about the peasants anymore. It's a message, a symbol of what can happen when people who have nothing rise up and demand change. The Lord can't let that stand. He can't afford to let the rebellion continue to grow, to challenge his reign. But even with the Lord's forces closing in, you know that this war is far from over. This isn't just about winning battles. It's about breaking an old system that has existed for centuries. It's about the people, and the people are with you. The rebellion begins to take shape in ways you hadn't anticipated. You and your fellow leaders, those who have fought beside you every step of the way, gather in secret. meeting behind closed doors to discuss the future. You know that the Lord is going to strike soon. He'll want to crush the rebellion in one decisive blow, and you have to be ready for him. The question is, how do you fight an army that's bigger, better equipped, and far more organized than anything you've ever faced? The answer comes in pieces. It's not a perfect plan. It's a patchwork of strategies, ideas, and hopes. But it's the best you can do with what you have. You'll need to strike at the Lord's supply lines, his army of resources. You'll need to hit hard and fast, and then disappear before the soldiers can respond. Guerrilla tactics, hit-and-run raids, ambush, all of these will be crucial in the days to come. But the biggest challenge is unifying the disparate villages, the scattered rebel factions, into a cohesive force. It's a logistical nightmare. Some villagers are eager to fight, others are hesitant. Some have resources to offer, while others are barely scraping by. The rebellion is a patchwork quilt of motivations, but beneath it all, there's a common thread. They want change. They want freedom. And for now, that's enough to hold the rebellion together. You begin traveling from one outpost to another, rallying the troops, forging alliances, making plans. There are moments when it feels like you're losing control. The rebellion is growing so fast, and it's becoming harder to manage. The sheer size of it all is overwhelming. But with every village you visit, every new leader you meet, the fire of rebellion grows stronger. These people, these peasants who have suffered for so long, have finally found their voice, and they will not be silenced again. During your travels, you meet some of the most remarkable individuals, peasants turned soldiers, women who have picked up arms to protect their families, children who've learnt to fight before they should even know how to hold a weapon. These people, ordinary people, have found the strength to stand up against an oppressive system that has kept them down for centuries. And that strength, that unity, is what keeps you going. One day, as you meet with the leaders of a neighboring village, you hear the news. The Lord's army is moving toward your strongest outpost. They're planning a direct assault. The battle is coming. You feel a wave of panic sweep over you, but you push it down. This is it. This is the moment you've been preparing for. The time has come to stand and fight. You gather your leaders, your fellow rebels, and make your way to the village at the front lines. The air is thick with tension. The villagers have fortified their homes, but you know that the Lord's soldiers won't be easily stopped. This will be a battle like no other. The sun begins to set as the Lord's army approaches, their march slow but inevitable. You've made your preparations. The village is ready as it can be. You've set traps, dug ditches, and created barricades. You've armed the villagers with whatever weapons you could find, axes, pitchforks, farm tools turned into weapons of war. It's not enough, not by any means, but it will have to do. You stand with your comrades, watching the horizon. The sky is streaked with reds and oranges, as if the very heavens themselves are signaling that the final confrontation is about to begin. You feel the weight of everything bearing down on you. You think of the villagers you've fought alongside, the ones who have given everything for this cause. And you think of the others, those who couldn't make it, the ones who were left behind. Their memory fuels your resolve. The Lord's army arrives just after nightfall, their torches lighting up the darkness, casting long shadows over the landscape. They've come in force, their numbers overwhelming. They're here to crush you, to end the rebellion once and for all. But the rebels, the villagers, are ready. They don't have the strength of an organized army, but they have something more powerful: the will to fight, the desire to be free. The first wave of the Lord's men charges forward, but they're met with resistance. The villagers stand firm, pushing back with all their might, their voices ringing with defiance. The battle is fierce. It's chaos men and women fighting, side by side, armed with the tools of their trade, fighting for their families, for their future. The Lord's soldiers are strong, but the rebels are fueled by something more powerful, the desire for freedom, for justice, for a life free from oppression. You charge forward, your heart pounding in your chest. The battle is long, and the cost is high. You lose comrades, you lose friends, but you don't stop. The rebellion has come too far, and you will fight until the end. As the battle rages on, you hear a familiar voice behind you. You turn to see one of your comrades, his face bloodied but filled with determination. "We're winning," he says, a grim smile on his face. "The Lord's army is retreating. The rebellion has won, but the cost has been high. Too many lives lost, too many sacrifices made." As the sun rises on the battlefield, you realize that this war is not over. The Lord has been defeated today, but there will be more battles too. Fight. There will be more sacrifices to make. The rebellion is alive, it's strong, and you will continue to fight, because you know that this fight is worth it. The world is changing, and you are at the center of it. The rebellion has won its first major victory. But even as the dust settles from the battle, there is a heavy realization that this fight is far from over. The Lord's soldiers have retreated, but they are not gone for good. The victory you've just won is significant. It's a mark in history that will be remembered, but it is also fragile. The Lord will surely regroup, rally his forces, and come back with even more might. And when he does, you must be ready. But for now, you take solace in the fact that the rebellion is growing, and you've proved to the people, to yourself, that change is possible. The dream of a world where peasants are not bound to a life of servitude, a world where they can stand on their own 2 feet, is beginning to take shape. But that dream will need more than just courage. It will need strategy, leadership, and an unwavering commitment to the cause. You sit in the midst of your comrades, exhausted but filled with a sense of accomplishment. The night after the battle, there's a quiet sense of camaraderie that fills the air. The fires are low, and the sounds of the battlefield have faded into the background, leaving only the hushed conversations of the rebels. There are those who mourn, who shed tears for the comrades they've lost. But there's also something else in the air, a feeling of hope, of possibility. The people who fought this battle, the ones who have joined this rebellion, are not the same people who cowered under the Lord's rule. They are stronger, bolder, more determined. They are fighters now. As you sit with your leaders, you discuss what comes next. There's no time to rest. The victory today was hard won, but it won't last unless the rebellion continues to grow, continues to fight. The Lord's army will come again, stronger than ever, and the rebellion must be ready to meet it head-on. What's next? One of your comrades asks, his voice heavy with exhaustion. We've won today, but the Lord's men will return. We can't stop here. You look around the room, your heart swelling with pride as you see the faces of those who fought beside you. They've been through so much, through the plague, through famine, through the cruelty of the Lord's, and now they're standing with you, ready to fight for a better future. We keep going, you say, your voice steady and resolute. We rally more villagers, more people. We strengthen our defenses. We make sure that when the Lord's army comes, we're ready. There's no hesitation in your words. The people are looking to you for direction, and you know that this fight is more than just about survival. It's about creating something new, something better, something that can't be destroyed by the Lord's men. It's about showing the world that the peasants, the workers, the ones who have always been seen as nothing but tools for the rich and powerful, are capable of standing up and changing the world. As the days pass, you and your fellow leaders begin to work on the next phase of the rebellion. The victory has given you the momentum you need, but the road ahead is still dangerous. The Lord will not sit idly by while his control over the land slips away. The rebellion must be organized, disciplined, and prepared to withstand the coming assault. You send word to the neighboring villages, asking them to join the rebellion, to send their fighters and resources. The task is not easy. Some villagers, though sympathetic, are still afraid of the repercussions. The Lord's men have a long reach, and the threat of retaliation is enough to make many of the villagers hesitate. But there are others who are ready to fight. They've seen the power of the rebellion, seen that it's possible to stand up to the Lord. These villagers are the ones you need, those who are willing to risk everything for a chance at a better life. You travel from village to village, speaking to the people, urging them to join the rebellion. The support is growing, though it's slow. Some villagers remain too fearful, too cautious to take that first step toward rebellion. But others, especially those who have witnessed the first victory, are eager to take up arms and join the fight. In one village, the villagers have gathered in secret, their faces lit by the flickering light of a single fire. They listen to your words as you speak of freedom, of a future where they can stand on their own, no longer bound to the whims of the Lord. We've been slaves for too long, you say, your voice strong. We've worked the land for others. We've bled for them, but now it's time for us to take what is ours. Together, we can take back our future. You feel the power of your words as they hang in the air, and for the first time, you see something new in the eyes of the villagers. Hope. Hope that they too can fight for something more, something better. And in that moment, you know you've succeeded. The rebellion is no longer just a fight for survival. It's a fight for justice. And the people who have suffered for so long are ready to stand beside you, to fight for that justice. The journey is far from over. You know that, but for the first time, you feel that the end of the road might be within reach. The Lord's army may be strong, but the rebellion is growing, and every victory, every village that joins the cause, brings you closer to the day when you'll see the end of the Lord's reign. Days blend into weeks, and you find yourself leading the charge more often than you would like. The battle is no longer fought with just your weapons. It's a war of strategy, of alliances, of resources. The rebels are not only fighting on the battlefield, they are fighting for survival. You must protect the villages, keep them hidden, ensure they have enough to eat, and organize them into a cohesive force. The Lord's army will be back, and when they are, you need to be ready to face them head on. The time for small skirmishes is over. The next battle will be the one that decides the future of the rebellion. If you can hold the line, if you can win the next fight, then the Lord's power will be shattered beyond repair. But if you lose, the rebellion will crumble, and the Lord will regain his hold on the land. You know that the people are counting on you. They are looking to you not just for leadership, but for hope. The rebellion has given them the strength to fight. Now, you must give them the strength to win. The next few weeks are filled with preparations. Every village is mobilized. Every fighter is armed. The women, the children, the elders, everyone is playing their part. The rebellion has become a force to be reckoned with. And the Lord can no longer pretend that it's just a small, fleeting movement. It's real, it's powerful, and it's coming for him. The night before the next battle, you gather with your comrades one final time. The fire crackles in front of you, casting flickering shadows across the faces of those who will fight beside you. They are scared, but they are determined. You see it in their eyes. The fear is there, but it's tempered by something stronger. The will to fight. This is it. You say, your voice steady, though you feel the weight of the moment. Tomorrow, we fight. Tomorrow, we show the Lord that his reign is over. But we do it for each other, for our families, for our future. And as you look around at the faces of the people who have stood beside you from the beginning, you know that no matter what happens, the rebellion has already changed everything. The Lord may have armies, but you have something more powerful. The unity of a people who have finally found their voice, and that voice will not be silenced. The night before, the battle feels as though time itself is slowing. The village is alive with whispers, quiet, hushed words that hang in the air like smoke, too delicate to disturb the tense atmosphere. You stand near the edge of the camp, the soft glow of the firelight illuminating your face, casting long shadows around you. The ground beneath your feet feels firm, yet somehow it seems as though the weight of the world is pressing down on you. You've seen countless faces filled with hope, fear, and determination today, but now, as you prepare for the final confrontation, everything feels different. This is the moment you've been working toward since the rebellion began, the moment when everything you fought for will either break or stand. The Lord's army is on the move, advancing toward your position, and tomorrow will be the day when everything is decided. You feel it in your bones. Tomorrow will be the end of this chapter, one way or another. You close your eyes, taking a deep breath as you try to steady your nerves. There's no room for doubt now. The preparations are done. The rebels, the villagers who have come together to fight, are ready. The barricades are set, the traps have been placed, and the weapons, though humble and makeshift, are in the hands of those who know the importance of this moment. This battle will not be won by sheer strength alone. It will be won by unity, by determination, and by the conviction of those who refuse to kneel any longer. But even so, the odds are still stacked against you. The Lord's army, though driven back once before, will return with more soldiers, better trained and more ruthless than ever. The battle ahead will be nothing like the small skirmishes you've fought so far. This will be the full weight of the Lord's might crashing down upon your village and the rebellion. This is the moment of reckoning. You're not just fighting for survival anymore. You're fighting for everything. As the night wears on, you find yourself walking through the camp, offering quiet words of encouragement to your comrades. There's an air of anxiety hanging over the rebels, but it's tempered by something else, something deeper. It's a quiet resolve, a strength born from the knowledge that this battle, though costly, is necessary. The people have come together for a reason, and they won't go back to the lives they had before. The Lord's control, his reign of terror, must end. You stop near the fire, your eyes meeting those of the village elder who has seen many years of hardship. Her face is drawn with age and sorrow, but there's something unyielding in her eyes. Something that tells you she believes in this cause more than anything. Tomorrow, she says softly, her voice rough from the smoke, we fight for our future, for the children, for the land, for every man and woman who has toiled under the Lord's rule. You nod, swallowing the lump that rises in your throat. You know the price of this fight. It will be steep, but you're ready to pay it. We fight for everything, you reply, your voice steady, for the future we deserve. The night drags on, and as the hours pass, the tension only grows. The sounds of the battle preparations fade into the background, replaced by a quiet, persistent hum of anticipation. The rebels gather in small groups, sharing stories, offering each other comfort, trying to ease the nerves that have settled. In their stomachs, they speak of what's at stake: of freedom, of a better life, and each word fuels the fire of defiance that burns inside them. Finally, the night gives way to the pale light of dawn. You can see the first hints of the sun on the horizon, the light spilling across the camp, painting everything in shades of orange and gold. It's a beautiful morning, one that feels too peaceful for the storm that's about to hit. The rebel forces are in place, ready to meet the Lord's army head-on. You take one last look around at the people who have come together for this fight. The farmers, the workers, the families who have sacrificed everything to stand up to the Lord. And in that moment, you realize that this fight is not just about the rebellion, it's about the future. It's about making sure that no one ever has to live in fear again. You stand at the front of the rebel forces, your comrades by your side, as the first wave of the Lord's soldiers begins to march toward you. The sight is daunting. The Lord's army is vast, their numbers seemingly endless, stretching out beyond the horizon. Their armor gleams in the morning light, their swords raised high, their battle cries filling the air. But even as you watch them advance, you don't falter. You stand tall, your heart beating fiercely in your chest. The Lord may have soldiers, may have wealth, may have power, but you have something more: the people. The spirit of rebellion and the will to see this through. The first clash happens faster than you expect. The soldiers charge, their horses galloping forward, their weapons raised. The rebels respond with a roar, meeting them head-on. The sound of metal against metal rings out as the two sides collide, the weight of the battle filling the air. You feel the impact of the first blow as a soldier swings a sword toward you, but you sidestep just in time, raising your pitchfork to block it. It's awkward, unrefined, but it's enough to keep you alive. You're fighting for more than survival now. You're fighting for the freedom of your people. The battle is brutal, chaotic. The Lord's soldiers are better trained, more disciplined, and their numbers seem overwhelming. But the rebels fight with a ferocity that comes from years of oppression. Each swing of a weapon, each thrust of a pitchfork, is filled with the weight of a lifetime of suffering. The ground beneath your feet shakes with the violence of the fight, but you hold your ground. You know that the outcome of this battle will determine the future of your people, and you can't let them down. Time becomes a blur. The battle rages on, each minute feeling like an eternity. You can hear the cries of the wounded, the shouts of your comrades, the clashing of swords and shields. The village, which was once a place of peace and hard labor, is now a battlefield. You can feel the strain in your muscles, the fatigue that's beginning to settle in, but you push through. You have no choice. You must keep fighting. Then, amidst the chaos, something happens. The momentum begins to shift. The Lord's soldiers, who were once so confident in their superiority, begin to falter. You see it in their eyes there, not prepared for the kind of resistance they're facing. The peasants, the ones they've always seen as nothing more than tools for labor, are fighting back with everything they have. The sight of your comrades, your friends, standing firm, refusing to give up, fills you with strength. The Lord's army begins to waver. The soldiers start to retreat, slowly at first, then with greater speed as they realize they can't break the line. The rebels, emboldened by this change, press forward, pushing back the soldiers with renewed vigor. The battle rages on, but now it feels as though the end is in sight. You can't stop now, not when victory is within reach. And then it happens. The Lord's army breaks. They retreat, turning and running in the face of the rebellion's strength. The ground shakes with their retreat, the dust rising in clouds behind them. The rebels roar in triumph, their voices echoing across the battlefield. The victory is yours. The rebellion has succeeded. For now, the Lord's power has been broken. But as you look around at the battlefield, the cost of victory becomes clear. The ground is littered with the bodies of the fallen rebels and soldiers alike. You see the faces of those who fought beside you, those who gave everything for this cause. Their sacrifice weighs heavily on your heart. The rebellion may have won the day, but it has come at a terrible price. You stand amidst the aftermath of the battle, your body aching, your heart heavy with grief. But even as you mourn the loss of your comrades, there's a sense of pride, of accomplishment. The rebellion has changed the world. The Lord's army has been defeated, and the future of your people is no longer in his hands. The fight is not over, but today you have won. And that victory, no matter the cost, will echo through history. The days following the battle are a mixture of relief and sorrow. You've won the fight, yes, but the victory comes at a steep price. The village, once vibrant and full of life, now lies in ruins. The buildings are scarred, the roads are torn up, and the fields where you once worked are now filled with the wreckage of war. The dead, both from your side and the Lord's, are a grim reminder of the price of rebellion. The faces of those you've lost, the comrades who stood beside you, haunt your every thought. But as you stand among the wreckage, there's also a flicker of something else. The rebellion has proven something important. The people can stand up. The people can rise. You walk through the village, your feet heavy with the weight of the journey you've undertaken. The survivors, those who made it through the battle, work together to clear the debris, to rebuild what can be salvaged. The wounded are cared for, their injuries treated with the limited supplies available. It's not much, but it's a start. The rebellion has left its mark on the land, and now it's time to rebuild not just the village, but the very fabric of your society. The rebels are tired, and who can blame them? They've been fighting for so long, living in a world of constant fear and struggle. But there's a new energy in the air now. The Lord's army has been defeated, the village is still standing, and for the first time in years, there's hope. The dream of a better future, one where the peasants are free from the yoke of the Lord's, seems within reach. But it's a fragile hope. The victory was hard won, and the fight is far from over. You sit down by the fire that night, the warm glow, casting long shadows across the faces of your fellow rebels. They've been through so much, and yet they sit here now, with their heads held high. You hear the stories they share of the battle, of the comrades they lost, of the sacrifices that were made. There's a somber tone to their voices, but there's also pride. They fought for something that matters. They fought for freedom. The village elder, the woman who has seen it all and lived through more than most, approaches you. Her face is lined with age and sorrow, but there's a strength in her eyes that refuses to fade. She sits beside you, her hands folded in her lap. Tomorrow we'll begin rebuilding, she says quietly. Not just the village, but our lives. We've lost so much, but we've gained something, too. A chance to build a future. You nod, the weight of her words sinking in. The battle may be over, but the real work is only just beginning. Rebuilding the village will take time, but rebuilding the rebellion, ensuring that the people are strong enough to defend themselves, will take more than just bricks and mortar. It will take unity, it will take leadership, and above all, it will take sacrifice. The Lord may have been defeated for now, but he's not gone, and the rebellion, though strong, is still fragile. I know, you reply, your voice quiet but resolute. We've won the battle, but we haven't won the war. The Lord will come again, and when he does, we need to be ready. The elder looks at you, her eyes piercing and wise. You're right, she says. The fight isn't over. But for the first time, I see something different. The people believe in this. The people want this change. And together, we can make it happen. You sit in silence for a moment, the crackling fire the only sound between you. There's a lot to be done, and you know that the road ahead won't be easy. But the rebellion is no longer a handful of scattered rebels. It is a movement, a force that cannot be ignored. The people are united, and that unity is what will carry you forward. Over the next few days, the village begins to heal. The injured are cared for, the dead are buried, and the bodies of the fallen rebels are honored. Their sacrifice is not forgotten. The work of rebuilding is hard, and it seems like there's always more to do than can be accomplished in a single day. But each time a building is reconstructed, a wall is rebuilt, or a field is cleared, the village feels a little stronger. The foundation for something new, something better, is being laid. The survivors of the rebellion, though wary, are filled with a sense of purpose. They begin to organize. There's talk of expanding the rebellion, of striking at the Lord's stronghold, of taking the fight to him before he can regroup. But there are also whispers of caution. The Lord is powerful, and his forces are vast. It's one thing to defeat his army in a single battle, but it's another thing entirely to go toe-to-toe with him again. The Lord will not back down quietly. You know that a direct assault on his stronghold is not feasible, not yet. The rebellion needs to grow. The villagers need to be united under one banner, under one cause. You need more fighters, more resources, more allies, and, perhaps most importantly, you need a strategy. You've fought one battle, but the war is a different beast entirely. You cannot afford to charge in blindly. The Lord is ruthless, and he will not hesitate to destroy everything you've built if he sees the rebellion as a threat to his rule. You meet with your fellow leaders, strategizing, planning. The task ahead is monumental, but for the first time, it feels like victory is possible. The rebellion is stronger than ever, and the people have shown that they are willing to stand together for something greater than themselves. The Lord's grip on the land is weakening, and the rebellion is spreading, village by village, gaining ground in ways that were once unimaginable. We need to consolidate our power. You say to the council, your voice steady. We need to make sure that every village that joins us is armed, is organized, and is ready to fight. We need to strike at the Lord's resources, cut off his supply lines, disrupt his operations. If we can do that, we can weaken his ability to fight back. The council listens intently, nodding in agreement. The plan is sound, but it will require coordination and precision. The Lord's army is still a formidable force, and though you've shown that the rebellion can stand, you know that a full-on war will take time, patience, and sacrifice. The people are ready to fight, but they need a leader, someone who can guide them through the chaos. They need a plan, a vision for the future. We need more than just soldiers. One of the leaders speaks up. We need to gain support from the towns, the traders, the people who have something to lose. We can't win this just by fighting battles. We need to cut the Lord off from his wealth, his influence. You nod. The rebellion cannot be limited to just the battlefield. It must spread into every corner of the land. It must strike at the heart of the Lord's empire, the commerce, the trade, the land that he controls, every piece of his kingdom, that the rebellion can take, every asset you can disrupt, weakens his hold on the land. The rebellion is not just a military campaign, it's a battle for control, for power, for the future. We need to be strategic, you say. We need to hit where it hurts. We disrupt his trade, cut off his resources, and undermine his authority wherever we can. The people will follow us, but we have to make sure we're not just fighting his army, we're fighting everything he represents. The council agrees, and the plan begins to take shape. The rebellion is moving beyond a mere struggle for survival. It is becoming a movement for change, a force that will reshape the future of the land. You can feel it. This is just the beginning. The road ahead will be long, and the battles will only get harder. But you know one thing for sure: the Lord's power will not hold forever. The people have found their voice, and the rebellion will not be silenced. The next few weeks are filled with preparation. You rally the villagers, send word to those who are sympathetic to the cause. The rebellion grows, slowly but surely. The people have seen what you've accomplished, and they are ready to join you in the fight. The Lord's stronghold may still be far off, but every village, every rebel you add to your ranks, brings you one step closer to the ultimate goal, a world where the peasants can stand tall, free from the chains of the Lord. The weeks following the council's decision to press on with a broader strategy are filled with a sense of relentless urgency. There is no time to waste. The Lord's forces will regroup, and the rebellion, while strong, is still vulnerable. There is no room for mistakes, no room for hesitation. Every action, every decision must count. The villagers who have joined your cause are eager to take action, but you know that a strategy built on hasty decisions could lead to your undoing. You must be precise, you must be calculated, and most importantly, you must build alliances in places you never thought possible. The rebellion is no longer just about a group of peasants fighting for their homes and families. It is now a movement that must transform from a scattered series of small uprisings into a unified force capable of challenging the Lord's empire. That will take not just soldiers, but allies in the form of traders, merchants, and other influential figures who are dissatisfied with the Lord's rule. The people you meet on your travels will be as crucial to your cause as the fighters who stand beside you on the front lines. You travel with a small group of trusted comrades, people who have proven themselves to be not only capable in battle, but shrewd in the ways of negotiation and persuasion. The first village you visit is a bustling trade hub, where the merchants deal in goods from across the region. The city's wealth is built on trade, and that wealth has always been controlled by the Lord. The people here may not be soldiers, but they hold power in their coin, and their willingness to support the rebellion could be the key to undermining the Lord's economic base. As you enter the town, you notice the contrast between the busy streets and the guarded looks on the faces of the townspeople. They've heard the rumors of rebellion, but many of them have also seen what happens when peasants rise up against the established order. They've seen the Lord's wrath, his iron fist, and they know that standing with the rebellion could mean putting everything they've built at risk. Fear is written on their faces, but there is also something else, a quiet sense of dissatisfaction. It's the same sense you saw in your own village, the same feeling that made people take up arms against a system that has taken so much from them. You meet with the local merchant leaders in a dimly lit room, a place where decisions are made, without the prying eyes of the Lord's men. The tension is palpable. You can feel their reluctance, their hesitation. They are wealthy, influential, and, for the most part, they live in relative comfort compared to the peasants. But that doesn't mean they are blind to the injustices happening around them. They know the Lord's policies are hurting their businesses, driving up taxes, and creating an unstable environment that threatens their profits. But even as they express their frustrations with the Lord's rule, they are wary of openly supporting the rebellion. To do so would invite retaliation, and they know how ruthless the Lord can be when he's crossed. Why should we risk everything we've built? One of the merchants asks, his voice low but sharp. The Lord's army is vast. Even if we support you, how can we be sure we won't lose everything? You look at the group, feeling the weight of their fears. You understand their reluctance, their hesitation. They've built their lives on the Lord's system, and taking a stand against him is dangerous. But you also know that the Lord's power is crumbling. His army may have been strong once, but the rebellion has shown that the people will no longer bend to his will. If you don't stand with us, you say, your voice steady, then you are complicit in a system that will eventually destroy everything you've built. The Lord's reign will end, one way or another. You can choose to support the people and help us win, or you can wait for the inevitable collapse that will take everything from you. But either way, the world is changing, and those who don't adapt will be left behind. The room falls silent, and for a long moment, no one speaks. The tension thickens as the merchants exchange looks, weighing the risks and rewards. Finally, the leader of the group speaks. He's a man with graying hair and a sharp, calculating mind. His eyes are hard, but there's a flicker of something in them, now something like recognition. You make a strong case, he says, and perhaps it's time we make our stand. The Lord has taken too much from us. If the people are ready to fight, then we will stand with you. We will provide supplies, we will offer our support, but you must promise us one thing. You lean in, listening intently. What do you need? We need protection, he says, his voice soft but firm. We cannot risk being caught in the middle. If we are to help you, we need a guarantee that the Lord's men will not retaliate against us. You nod, understanding the stakes. You can't promise them invulnerability, but you can offer them a plan, a way to keep their people safe while also supporting the rebellion. It will take careful coordination, careful moves to make sure that the rebellion remains under the radar of the Lord's men, but you know it's doable. Done, you say. We will provide protection. We will make sure the Lord does not see your involvement until it is too late. You have my word. The merchant leader nods, a small but significant gesture. Then we are with you, for the rebellion. The feeling in the room shifts. What was once hesitation turns into resolve. The merchants, once fearful and uncertain, are now committed. They will provide supplies, food, weapons, and other resources needed to continue the fight. This is a turning point. The rebellion now has the support of one of the wealthiest and most influential trade towns in the region. But even as you leave the town, heading back to the heart of the rebellion, you know that this is just one small victory in a much larger war. The Lord has vast resources, and it will take more than just the support of a few towns to defeat him. You need more allies, more people willing to take a stand, to risk everything for the cause. You return to your base of operations, the small but growing group of rebels now looking to you for guidance. The news of the merchant town's support spreads quickly, bolstering morale among the people. The rebellion is not just a local uprising anymore, it's becoming a movement with real potential to bring about change. The rebellion's unity is becoming stronger, and with the merchant town's resources at your disposal, you feel a renewed sense of hope. But there is still much work to be done. The rebellion needs to continue growing, and you know the Lord's forces will strike again. The fight is not over, it's just begun. And you will stand with your people, no matter the cost. You gather your fellow leaders, discussing the next steps. You will need to reach out to more villagers, continue to build alliances, and train the fighters who will form the backbone of your army. The goal is clear: to strike at the heart of the Lord's power, to dismantle his infrastructure, and to hit him where it hurts the most, his resources. The Lord's economy is what holds his empire together. If you can weaken that, you can weaken him. The rebellion is moving faster than you ever anticipated. You know the path ahead will be fraught with challenges and danger. The Lord will fight back, and he will fight hard. But you have something he can never have: unity. The people are with you, and together you will bring an end to his reign of terror. The rebellion has found its rhythm, and though the road is long, you know that the future is within reach. The Lord's empire is crumbling, and when the dust settles, it will be the people who have risen up, fought together, and one that will be the ones left standing. The momentum of the rebellion is undeniable. Each day, more villagers join your cause, swelling the ranks of your growing army. Word of your success, the victory over the Lord's men, and the growing unity among the people spreads far and wide. The rebellion, once a fragile spark, is now a roaring fire that cannot be ignored. You can feel it in the air of the belief that a real, tangible change is within reach. But the journey is far from over. The Lord's forces may have been temporarily pushed back, but his power and influence remain a looming shadow. He will not let this rebellion go unanswered. The weeks that follow are a whirlwind of preparation. The village where your core group of rebels is stationed becomes a hub of activity. Your forces are being trained, fortified, and equipped. Supplies flow in, the merchants' support now ensuring that the rebels have enough food, ammunition, and resources to continue the fight. But with each passing day, the weight of leadership presses down on you more heavily. The dreams of a better future fuel your every step, but the price of achieving that future is becoming increasingly clear. You can feel the responsibility of the people's hopes and dreams on your shoulders, and it's heavier than any sword or shield you've ever carried. Your council meetings are filled with heated discussions. You have to balance immediate needs with long-term strategies, making sure that every decision you make strengthens the rebellion and doesn't inadvertently weaken it. Every move is critical now. You can't afford to waste any opportunity, any moment of time. The Lord is formidable, and although his control is slipping, he still has armies, castles, and loyalists. You must act quickly and decisively, but you must also be cautious. Rash decisions could lead to disaster. In one of the council meetings, you sit across from the other leaders, listening intently as they discuss the next steps. The air is thick with tension, but there's a sense of purpose here, a shared understanding of what must be done. We've gathered enough support from the surrounding villagers, says the sharp-minded strategist, a woman whose military insights have been invaluable to the cause. But the Lord is no fool. We'll need to cut off his resources, his supply lines, his communication networks. We can't just go after his men. We need to weaken him where it counts. You nod in agreement, your mind already calculating the steps needed to disrupt the Lord's ability to wage war. You've learned that this rebellion cannot rely on brute force alone. The Lord's armies are formidable, and a direct assault would be too costly. The rebellion needs to play the long game, focusing on strategic hits that will break down the Lord's ability to control the land. You need to cripple his economy, scatter his resources, and make it impossible for him to maintain his grip. The Council discusses the specifics of your strategy: sabotaging supply routes, disrupting his communication with his distant outposts, and weakening his ability to recruit and fund his soldiers. The rebellion, after all, isn't just about taking territory. It's about destabilizing the very infrastructure that holds the Lord's power in place. What about his stronghold? One of your comrades asks. He has a fortress in the eastern hills. If we take that, we can cripple him for good. Thought of attacking the stronghold sends a shiver down your spine. It's heavily fortified, and the Lord's best soldiers guard it. Yet there's an undeniable truth in what your comrade says. If you can take the stronghold, you can claim a definitive victory. You can turn the tide of the war, but there's risk involved. If the stronghold falls, it will be a blow that might break the Lord's power, but if it fails, the consequences will be catastrophic. A failed attack would send a message of weakness to your people and to the Lord. We'll have to wait, you say. We can't afford to be reckless. We need more resources, more troops. We'll make our move when we're sure we can succeed. As the council meeting continues, you find yourself thinking about the broader implications of the rebellion. It's no longer just about the Lord and his men. The rebellion is about the people, the farmers, the workers, the families who have been oppressed for so long. You're fighting for their right to live without fear, for the opportunity to stand on their own. And yet, despite the progress, you know the fight will only get harder from here. After the meeting, you walk through the camp, your mind swirling with the decisions ahead. The villagers, who once lived in fear and silence, are now standing together, fighting for their freedom. You see them working together, preparing weapons, repairing homes, and tending to the wounded. It's a beautiful sight, and yet there's something else that lingers in the air. The rebellion has become more than just a series of battles. It's a movement, a new way of life that challenges everything the Lord's reign has stood for. But with that challenge comes uncertainty. The cost of this movement is not just measured in blood, it's measured in lives, in families, in communities. And as much as you hope for a better future, you cannot ignore the reality of what has been lost along the way. You see the faces of the fallen in your dreams, the comrades who have given their lives for this cause. It weighs on you, but it also drives you forward. Their sacrifice must mean something. It must count for something. The Lord's tyranny must end. The day before the next phase of the rebellion begins, you gather the villagers again. The time has come to move forward. The attack on the Lord's resources must happen soon, and you need to ensure that everyone is ready for the task at hand. You stand before the crowd, the faces of the people you fought beside, and feel the weight of the moment. This is it, you say, your voice steady but filled with the conviction of everything you fought for. Tomorrow, we take the next step in this fight. We won't just survive, we will fight for our future. We will fight for a world where we stand tall, where we are free from the Lord's rule. There's a murmur of agreement in the crowd. the fire of rebellion igniting once again in their hearts. You know that this next stage will be difficult. The Lord will not surrender easily. He will come at you with everything he has. But you also know that there is strength in unity. There is strength in the people. The next day, you begin the coordinated attacks on the Lord's supply lines. It's a series of small, tactical strikes designed to disrupt the flow of goods and soldiers. The Lord's forces are scattered across the land, and by hitting them where it hurts their food, their weapons, their resources, you can weaken their ability to mount a counterattack. It's a dangerous strategy, but it's effective. You disrupt his ability to move and fight, and with each successful strike, you feel the balance of power shift just a little bit more in your favor. The skirmishes are brutal. You lose some good men and women, but each victory, no matter how small, feels like a step closer to ending the Lord's reign. The Lord is reacting with increasing fury, but it's clear that he is struggling. His forces are stretched thin, and they are no longer the cohesive fighting machine they once were. The rebellion is not just surviving, it is thriving. And then, one fateful day, you receive word. The Lord has sent his best soldiers to crush the rebellion once and for all. This is at the moment you've been waiting for, but the moment you've also feared. The final confrontation. You know that this fight will determine everything. If you lose, the rebellion will be crushed, and everything you've worked for will be lost. But if you win, the Lord's reign will be broken, and the people will finally be free. You rally your forces. The time for strategy is over. The battle for freedom is here, and you will lead your people into that fight, no matter the cost. The air is thick with anticipation as the day of the final battle dawns. You stand at the front of your forces, looking out over the field where the rebellion will either make its last stand or change the course of history. The weight of leadership is heavier now than ever before. It's not just about survival anymore. It's not just about the villagers you fought beside for so long. This is the moment where the future of the land will be decided. The Lord, once a distant figure of power, has now become the embodiment of all that has kept the people oppressed for so long. And today, the people will rise up and show that they will no longer be ruled by fear. Your forces are assembled in a line, their faces grim but resolute. The warriors, young and old, the farmers who have turned into soldiers, the women who have joined the cause. Each of them is standing with a resolve that you've never seen before. They are not fighting for mere survival anymore. They are fighting for something greater. They are fighting for freedom. The banners of the rebellion wave in the breeze, their colors bright, a stark contrast to the dust of the battlefield. You turn to the leaders of the rebellion, the council that has stood by you through thick and thin, their eyes focused, their minds sharp. This is it, you say, your voice steady but carrying the weight of everything that has come before. Today we end this. Today we take the fight to the Lord. We take back our future. No more fear, no more oppression. Today we stand together. They nod in silent agreement. No words are necessary. The battle ahead will be fought with actions, not speeches. The Lord's army, the same soldiers who have crushed every rebellion before, are marching toward you. They are confident, they are trained, they are prepared, but they are also underestimated. They are about to face something they've never faced before, the unity of a people who have nothing left to lose. A people who have found their strength in their shared fight for justice. The ground rumbles beneath your feet as the Lord's army approaches. Their steel glints in the sunlight, a shimmering mass of soldiers, armored and disciplined. They march in perfect formation, their banners raised high, their swords gleaming. But despite their imposing numbers, you feel a strange sense of calm. This isn't the first time you've stood before the Lord's men. But now, you are no longer the peasant cowering in the dirt. You are the leader of an uprising, a rebellion that has grown stronger with each battle. And today, you will stand tall with your people and face the Lord's army head-on. You take a deep breath, gathering your thoughts. There is no turning back now. The rebellion will either rise or fall with this fight. You look to your right and left, meeting the eyes of your closest comrades. You don't need to say anything. You all know what this moment means. Then, the sound of the Lord's army grows louder, their march shaking the ground beneath your feet. They are close now. The tension is unbearable. The soldiers are only moments away from crashing into the defenses you and your people have prepared. You can hear the soldiers shouting commands, their voices sharp and commanding, and your own forces respond with their own battle cries loud, defiant, filled with the spirit of the people who have stood up and said, enough. The first line of defense is the barricades you've erected, a series of makeshift walls and trenches that will slow the Lord's men down. The Lord's soldiers are trained for battle, but they are not prepared for the kind of guerrilla warfare you've been practicing. The rebellion has learned to fight using the land, using the environment to its advantage. You've set traps, hidden escape routes, and created choke points where the Lord's soldiers will find themselves at a disadvantage. The battle begins with the first clash of metal on metal as the Lord's soldiers meet the barricades. The sound is deafening, and the world feels as if it is narrowed to this single moment. The rebels, armed with whatever weapons they could find, fight fiercely, holding their ground against the soldiers who have come to crush them. Your heart pounds as you move forward, the pitchfork in your hand feeling both familiar and foreign, as if this is both the culmination of everything you've ever known and the beginning of something entirely new. The soldiers are not easily deterred. They push against the barricades, swinging their swords and shields with practiced precision. But the rebellion has something that they don't have: a shared cause, a shared vision of freedom. You see it in the eyes of the villagers, their determination shining through the chaos. They are not afraid, they are not backing down. The battle becomes a brutal, unrelenting push and pull. The Lord's soldiers fight with discipline and coordination, but they are unprepared for the ferocity of the rebellion. Every inch of land you gain is hard won, but the rebellion pushes forward, fighting for every scrap of ground, every victory. The air is thick with the sounds of combat shouts of defiance, the clash of swords, the grunts of soldiers and rebels alike. The battlefield is a whirlwind of violence, but through it all, you stay focused. You move with purpose, your eyes never leaving the enemy. You lead the charge, pushing forward through the chaos, driving your people forward. You feel the adrenaline pumping through your veins as you take down another soldier, the weight of your actions not lost on you. Every strike, every movement, is part of something much larger. This is the moment when the rebellion will either live or die. This is the moment when the people will either stand victorious or be crushed under the weight of centuries of oppression. You look to your comrades. The faces of the people you fought beside flash through your mind. You see the farmers, the workers, the mothers, the fathers, all of them, standing together for the first time, united in a common cause. You feel the power of that unity, the strength that comes from standing side by side, and you know, without a doubt, that this is the moment you've been waiting for. The rebellion is not just a fight for survival anymore. It's a fight for a future where the people are free, The battle rages on, but slowly the tide begins to turn. The Lord's soldiers, once so confident in their ability to crush the rebellion, begin to falter. Their formation begins to break down, their lines growing thinner as the rebels press forward, relentless in their determination. You hear the cries of the wounded, but you push on, undeterred. The rebellion is on the verge of victory. You can feel it in the air, in the way the Lord's soldiers are retreating, in the way the people are fighting with everything they have. And then, finally, the moment comes. The Lord's army, once so sure of their victory, begins to retreat. The soldiers, their ranks now broken, turn and flee, leaving the battlefield behind. The rebellion has won. You stand at the edge of the battlefield, watching as the Lord's forces scatter into the distance. The sound of their retreat echoes in the air, but you hear something else. Now, the sound of victory. The rebellion has triumphed. The Lord's reign has ended, and the people are free. But even as you stand there, feeling the weight of victory settle over you, you know that the battle is not truly over. The rebellion has won the fight, but the war is ongoing. The Lord may have fallen, but the future of the people is still uncertain. The work of rebuilding, of forging a new world, has just begun. The fight for freedom may be over, but the struggle for justice, for peace, for the future of the people will continue. And as you look around at the faces of the rebels, at the people who have fought beside you, you know one thing for certain. You will not stop. You will keep fighting, keep standing for the future, because the rebellion was never just about defeating the Lord. It was about something far greater. It was about the people as the sun sets on the battlefield. You stand tall, your heart filled with pride. The rebellion has succeeded. The world is changing, and you have been a part of it.